gosh, blasphemy.
Craft beers. You all like Miller Lite, right?
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
Yeah. We're all here.
I got to get you one of my glasses.
Ooh, that's good.
Yeah.
Is it etched or is it?
It's etched. It's laser etched.
You laser it?
Nice. I make these in my garage.
Do you have a rotary on your laser?
Oh yes.
Of course you do. Oh man, I wish I had a rotary on my laser. My laser's just flat.
I have a fiber galvo and I have a CO2 galvo, and so instead of being a gantry system, it's the
the spinny one.
Super quick. Yeah.
What do you do to lube? Do you use like Dawn to keep the glass from exploding?
Nope. Just a lot of trial and error on the right settings. This etches directly. Okay. I take it out of the box. I make sure there's no cardboard dust stuck to it with a air compressor. I stick it on the jig and I cut it.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yep.
I did a bunch of glass coasters because I can only do flat stuff like a peasant.
Yeah.
But yeah, I cracked a few of them real good figuring it out.
Yeah, I do stone coasters too. So.
Oh, that's rad.
Yeah.
That's very good.
Anyway, welcome to the show, everyone. Welcome to Talking Heads, episode 373, your once-week live show for the latest in beer and tech news. I'm Jeff, and I've got a special guest on the show. Do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, my name's Will. You may recognize me from, I've been doing computer stuff for a long time, but most recently, I've been over at PC World with one Adam Patrick Murray talking about the Full Nerd every week. I do videos for PC World. I host a podcast of my own called Brad and Will Made a Tech Pod. I'm the Will in that one. That's at techpod.content.town, and we do like a weekly deep dive into topics of interest. So it's usually we don't do like weekly news. Usually it's like a hey, here's how we did one about AI a few months ago. We talked about what the kind of nightmarish matrix math that goes into AI, and then just recently I started up a newsletter called What's Next, because I realized I'd gotten annoyed at all of the different ways that our computers are working more for Apple and Google and Microsoft and these faceless multinational corporations than they are for me. Then I realized it as I was installing Windows, and I was like, man, Microsoft has hit me for 8 subscriptions or something ridiculous as part of the install process for this thing. And so anyway, that's at next.content.town, and it's free. You can download it, get it in your inbox. There'll be one coming out Friday or Saturday this week. So
excellent. Yeah. I'm a longtime fan of yours.
Thanks, man.
Yeah. I remember you from Maximum PC days, and then you went on, did Tested, then you did your VR thing. And yeah, I followed you for a very, very long time. So I can't tell you how excited I am to have you on the show.
I'm extremely old, Jeff. So thank you for having me. It's it is a 6:17. I hit the early bird before I came down here, and then I'm gonna go take a nap after the show's over. Yeah. But no, it's awesome to be here, and I enjoyed you. Hold on, I'm gonna reach up here and turn on motion smoothing on my monitor for you, so that I'm aligned here. But yeah,
you got to get that faux 60 FPS for me.
Look, I've been testing one of those 240 hertz OLEDs that Asus and MSI announced at CES this year, and it's gonna ruin me. It is. I've had nice monitors before, but it is the bomb when you see like true blacks and like high refresh rate gaming, and it's all the things I like. It turns out so. There's no motion smoothing on this thing, though, so I just had to fake it for you.
Yeah, you don't need motion smoothing with a 240 hertz OLED. Like, let's be honest.
No, you're probably fine.
Anyway, if you all are just seeing the show for the first time, welcome. About time you checked us out. We talk beer, we talk tech, we talk games, pop culture, entertainment, sometimes some Star Trek, if you couldn't tell by the decor. We do drink alcohol in the show. If you're drinking along with us, alcoholic or not, let us know in the chat, and we'll see if we can give some shout outs as we go along. Last but not least, if you'd like to take part in the super secret chat and the even more super secret after party, we do a voice chat on Discord every night immediately following the show. And the only way to get access to that is through my Patreon. I paywall the Discord to keep the trolls at bay. So, link in the description. Go check it out and help keep the lights on around here.
I love a paywall for community because it means I have to do infinitely less moderation than I do when there's no paywall. So I'm a big fan of that.
That was exactly the point. when I've been running the Discord for about 7 years now, and I had a number of people ask, "Are you going to start a Discord? Are you going to start a Patreon? Are you going to do anything like that?" And I'm like, I don't want to moderate a Discord. Like, I don't. I was still working full time at the time and producing 2 videos a week, and I'm like, that doesn't sound fun. And
No.
I'm like, well, what if I charge people $1 to get in? That'll cut 99% of the people joining, and only the people who want to be there will be there. So let's do that. And we've never looked back. There's 800 people in the Discord now, like 650 active.
That's awesome.
It's a fantastic community.
Yeah. I like I said, I'm a big fan. And community work is real work. So yeah, I get it.
As fun as it is, it's still real work.
Yeah, I mean, it's time you could spend with family or making more videos or doing other stuff. So it all counts.
Yeah, exactly. Anyway, we start the show every week by opening a beer. Do you have a beverage you'd like to open tonight, or?
I'll take my Huggy off here. Look, it's cold and rainy and San Francisco winter, and I realize that there's people here who live in places where they have real winter and rains a lot and it's cold and windy and 80% humidity is a weenie winter. But I'm manifesting some summer and drinking a 21st Amendment summer lager.
Oh, nice.
That I picked up the other day. So yeah, that's where I'm at. 21st Amendment is right down. It's like our neighborhood brewery for PC World.
Yeah, I had lunch with Adam there last time I stopped by. So yeah, we might have to hit that next week when I'm in town. That'll be fun.
Yeah, get the cheese tots. If I'm around, I'll totally come down and grab a bite.
Absolutely. I have a beer that actually one of our other co-hosts, Steve, had on the show last week. And I thought it looked really interesting. So this is the Fort George Electric Surfboard double IPA. And the can art is just freaking wild.
The can art is really good. Yeah,
I loved it. Yeah. So Fort George is a local brewery. It's Astoria, Oregon, up on the northern Oregon coast. In the shadow of the Goonies house.
Okay.
So it's like half a mile from where the Goonies was filmed.
There's a tower in Astoria, right? I climbed up to the top of that tower, if I recall, when I was there.
There's a lighthouse. There's a couple other things up there, and yeah, it's right under the bridge that takes you into Washington.
Okay. So. Yeah. Good Coast Guard museum there too, if I recall.
Yes.
Very fun. I learned a lot. It's a scary water there in Astoria. Yeah. Oh, you're doing a pour. I was just gonna drink for the can because this is like a mowing the lawn beer.
You heathen. No.
I know.
No. So we were talking about my glass right before we started. Not only do I etch the outside of the glass, I etch the bottom of the glass. To provide a nucleation spot for your beer.
That's fun.
It refreshes your head while you're drinking. So I don't know if you can see all the bubbles coming up.
I see them. Yeah, that's amazing. Yeah.
So yeah, it's a functional glass.
I have real laser envy, just to be clear. You have I have an old Glowforge that I use. Like it's a friend of mine described the laser as once you have a laser, then like everything becomes a laser project, and he's not wrong.
Adam Savage said that. I think I heard he did that on.
That seems like something he would say when I think about it. I can't remember who it was, but yeah,
I think he said that in the video once.
It's entirely possible. Like when my kid was in elementary school, the teacher would be like, "Hey, we need somebody to cut a whole bunch of big letters out of 8 by 10 sheets of paper." It's like, I got this. Yep. I'm here. Just let me go. And then we just lasered a whole bunch of letters. So
my daughter had a dress up as a book character day for her school this last year, and she wanted to go as the pigeon from like Let the Pigeon Drive the Bus and things like that.
Oh yeah.
And so we went, well, why don't we make you like a pigeon hoodie? So mom sewed her up a hoodie that made her look like a pigeon. It looked fantastic. I went out to the laser and I made her a school bus out of cardboard. And so I cut the wheels and I etched it and then painted it real quick and then just put shoulder straps on a cardboard box. But everything was laser cut.
Fantastic. Those books are so funny. That's really good. I love the laser. Laser is an amazing project, amazing tool.
Yeah, I have been living the high life. I bought the lasers about 2 years ago. And actually what I started with was I made custom water bottles.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
So yeah, designed all of it in-house. And at the time I had, again, just like a little gantry. I think it was an Atzer 20-watt diode laser. And it took about an hour and a half to cut each of these, even with the rotary. And I'm like, there's got to be a faster way. And so I looked up and I went, okay, how much is a fiber galvo laser? Oh, it's about $3,500.
Yeah.
How many water bottles do I have to sell to pay for that? And so I sold 60 water bottles, and I got enough money to pay for the laser. And so now the laser just prints money, which is great.
There you go. So you need to start doing cups, because we did, when I worked on the Anacrusis, we did our team chotch was a laser etched cup with the game logo on it.
I do tumblers.
Metal tumbler.
I do insulated tumblers. So I've got
nice.
that. I've got the coasters. I do whiskey stones. If you're a whiskey drinker. Yeah, I do all kinds of stuff.
Cool.
It's all up on the store, craftcomputing.store. So thank you for the excellent segue to a plug.
I'm going to give you a segue to plug all day long, Jeff. You're good. Look, there's a lot of disappointed Will Smith fans in the chat. I'm sorry. There's at least 3 people who are excited. So it's going to happen.
Yeah, the Fresh Prince himself is here.
People, every time I check into a hotel, people are confused and then immediately disappointed.
Yeah.
So, yeah. It used to be able to tell how old people were by the reference they made, but that's stopped since he stopped making movies as much. This doesn't happen anymore.
Yeah, now it's the hockey player, right? It's you get that one a lot, or
baseball on the West Coast. There was a Dodgers. See, we had a pitcher in San Francisco. Well, we had a catcher in San Francisco. No, we had the pitcher in San Francisco, and the catcher was for the Dodgers down in L.A. And then our pitcher got traded someplace. I don't know where he ended up. Mm-hmm. But yeah, so we used to have Will Smith pitching on one side and Will Smith catching on the other side when we'd have a Dodgers Giants weekend, and it was bad for the social media.
Yeah, no kidding.
Guarantee no slaps though here, so you're good.
Yeah.
You're good on that.
Chris Rock is welcome in anytime.
Yeah, so. No violence on this channel.
Speaking of trying to find tech news this week, all the tech news has been tariff this and Tesla dealership that and things like that. And we often try to keep it very amorphous politically. Like let's talk about real issues. I mean, not that those aren't real issues, but try to keep it like tech centered. But lately that's been harder and harder to do.
I mean, it's we live in a world where there are consequences to things, and when people are governing by fiat, and you get in weird situations. So
yeah,
the tariff thing, we talked about tariffs on the Full Nerd this week at length.
Yeah,
and it's I mean, at some point people are going to just understand that the thing they've been told is not true.
Yeah.
And that this is going to pass on an enormous amount of cost to them, and it sucks for all of us.
Mm-hmm.
So,
as someone who's trying to start up a small devices business, I am fully aware of the incoming threats to tariffs to China on microcontrollers, on raw aluminum, on all kinds of things, because I'm importing hundreds of kilograms of raw aluminum here in the next couple of months, and I've already had to adjust my cost even before the tariffs go into effect, simply because it's like I can't sell a product for a particular price and then have my cost raised 30%. I would die. I would go out of business.
I've had multiple conversations with people of all different sizes over the last month, and it's the same story, right? Like I have a friend who makes keyboards, and he was saying he had 2 shipments come in. It was basically the exact same stuff in each shipment. One got a 20% tariff and one got a 10% tariff. And he doesn't understand why they got charged different things. Yeah. Other than one was one port and one was the other. One had one port of entry and one had a different port of entry. And like at the same time, when you talk to people at big AIBs or board vendors or systems integrators or whatever, they're all in the same boat. Like they have to plan for the worst case, because they can't take a 10 or 20% haircut on the stuff that they're selling. Yeah. And or else that work that goes into making that is just flushed down the toilet. But real bummer is that typically when we've had tariffs in the past, it's not like tariffs went away and then prices went back down. Yeah. So we're probably stuck with this indefinitely because of choices that we made. So,
yep.
Anyway, but we have some fun stuff to talk about too, right?
We do have some fun stuff. Yeah, we what's really funny is you texted me about this right before the show. You said, am I allowed to be negative? Like, how negative do you want me to be? I saw this story, and the reason I added it was I went, Will's not going to like this.
No, it's a bad story.
It's a bad story.
This is like, what's your cursing policy? Because I have some thoughts about this one, and it mostly involves excrement from a cow. But you know, we can tell the story first, and then I'll give my hot take.
Well, we usually air PG-13, and so that means we're allowed one F-bomb per show. So whoever takes it first is who takes it. So
okay, I love it. I love it.
All right, we'll just dive into this. I found this on 404 Media earlier today. And it is this video game created by AI vibe coding, which is a term that I'd never heard of before, but the more I read about it, the more I hated it. Makes $50,000 a month, and yours probably won't. And so right off the bat, we're already getting vibes of like shovelware. Is kind of where I'd like to go. Like, make me a game that's kind of a flight simulator and does this and has this interaction, but play the rules fast and loose. Like, I don't want to get bogged down with silly things like game mechanics and storytelling. I just want to, you know, create a world that multiple people can log into and fly around. And look, I've got kids. They play Roblox. I understand, like, the appeal of certain like open-ended, you know, I played Minecraft for 15 years. Like, I understand the appeal of certain like non-linear, no rules kind of games, but at the same time, the shovelware aspect is what's very concerning about this.
Well,
was my first take.
Also, Minecraft is open-ended from a gameplay standpoint, but it has a ton of rules.
Yes.
Like the rules of Minecraft are really well defined, and really, like, I guarantee you that your kids understand the rules of Minecraft incredibly well about how blocks interact with each other and how what kind of monsters spawn in which biomes, and which biomes can be next to each other, and where you're going to find the right color a kaya wood or whatever to make the house that you want, right?
Right.
So it's not. That only is a game without rules if you're not engaging with it at all. Like, and I realize that you were making a throwaway statement.
Yes.
So this thing, okay. I remain in kind of low key awe of the $1 Million Homepage. Do you remember the $1 Million Homepage? Are you old enough to remember the $1 Million Homepage?
I am old enough. Yes.
Yeah. So this is for the youngsters in the audience. There was a guy in, like, I don't know, 97 probably. It was like late 90s, who said, hey, if I make an image that's X times Y and I make sure that it has 1 million pixels in it, and I sell each pixel for $1, and I get people to buy these pixels, then I'll get $1 million. It's not a complicated idea on the surface, but the shocking thing about it, honestly, is that it worked. And ad agencies, the kind of people who buy ads for things on the internet back then, were like, oh man, what's our $1 Million Homepage strategy? We got to get on that $1 Million Homepage. Yeah. So they were buying up tons of pixels and putting like petfood.com or whatever ads on. I think it's probably still there if I had to guess. I'm looking I'm now desperately scrolling chat. Let's see. $1 Million Homepage. Does it still exist? Who knows?
Here it is. There you go.
Is it? It's still there? Yeah, this is it. It's a nightmare, right? It's like, it's got ads placed everywhere, but at the end of the day, this guy got his bag, and you got to respect that, right? I have to have a small amount of respect for our $1 Million Homepage hero. And
I've got some respect for the beer.com over here on the right side.
Yeah. But like, how many of these companies are still like Pixeloodle? I've never heard of that one.
Rent Clicks.
There's a couple of Andre the Giant Obeys in here, I think, that people like message boards bought. But this thing, this game, I don't even want to say the name of the game because I don't want people to go like start doing it and making this guy more money. This all has, you gotta get your space on the $1 Million Homepage, but he's hitting up crypto people who probably have a buttload of like floating around spending ETH and spending Bitcoin from the days when the money was free. And it just feels there's no game. There's nothing there. There's nothing to do. You fly around for about 3 seconds. You see a whole bunch of ads for stuff that you've never heard before. There's for a good time, call a phone number written on the ground at one place. There's like there's a bunch of stuff that's like seems like weird crypto scams. I saw some people that were writing HODL all over the place, and it's just like this headline feels like Two Lies and a Truth. You know, that game that you played in middle school where it's like, I'm going to say 3 things and 2 of them are going to be true. 2 of them will lie and 1 of them's true. And this like, yes, this game was created by AI vibe coding. That is one statement. It makes $50,000 a month. That also is a statement. And then yours probably won't. The one that's true is that yours won't.
Yeah.
And the other 2 things are kind of iffy, if you ask me. So,
yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah, but this is one of those use cases of AI that a lot of the shareholders for a bunch of companies are trying to get us all on board with, of like, hey, if you can prompt an AI well enough, you can have it generate an MMO and have that MMO be played in browsers around the world and have millions of people join on, and we can deliver ads. And the best part about all this is there's no programmers required. There's no overhead. There's no people involved.
But no people on any side of the thing. Yeah, that's exactly what you're going to get. Yeah. It's like this is okay. First off, I think everybody who listens to me on other podcasts or other places knows how I feel about AI, generative. Like I love data analysis AI. I love the tools that people are building that backstop radiologists, that help them catch the tumor indicator that you know, humans make mistakes and machines don't.
Right.
This is the beautiful thing about computers is, Pentium FDiv bug aside, generally pretty good at math, right? Like computers, if you put numbers in, then the numbers come out in a deterministic way until fairly recently. Like when we try to replace artists on video games, yes, we're replacing the expensive part of the thing, but we're replacing the cheapest people on the video game creation side, right? Yeah. We're not. When you replace voice actors, you're replacing, you know, people who are going to cost you a few $1,000s a day and work for 2 or 3 weeks on most games at most, not something that's going to cost you not the 20% of your revenue that goes to Valve for having a game on Steam, or the 10% that Epic takes for using the Unreal Engine or whatever. Right. Like you're replacing the small costs with this thing that it doesn't work very well. It lies to you. It's damaging to the environment, and it seems just kind of crappy. And also it's an enormous theft engine. So like all of these things combined are bad. I am incredibly skeptical of how much of this was built in. This seems very functional for a thing that's built with AI is all I'm going to say.
It seems very, very functional. I imagine a lot of the, like, if we just look at the screenshot that's provided here, we've got things like, you know, the plane. I'm sure an AI is out there that could deterministically figure out how to draw a plane in, you know, a 3D pixel art kind of style, or what a mountaintop would look like. You know, especially if you give it such a low resolution to hit those aspects with. But
well, these are so I loaded this up. These are polygons. This is all 3D.
Right.
The plane is a 3D plane. There's nothing that's rigged or has skeletons, so there's no movement. It's all hard bodies that don't move.
Right.
Nothing has collision. So like when you fly into a balloon, you just go through it because it's not really a game. It's just it's a video game engine. This feels like, hey, I want a Godot program that generates that looks like a flight sim. And then they did a whole bunch of work with they sat down with one of the programming tools, you know, whether it's GitHub Copilot or Claude has a programming module that I know quite a few actually web devs are kind of into these days, as almost like a co-dev buddy, right? Like the writing code along with them.
Yeah. And
I could see how you could end up with something like this. But people aren't going to play this. This is you getting money from your crypto bros to in exchange for some advertising. in the next big MMO. There's no challenge. There's nothing that makes this a game. There's nothing that I didn't even see a way to interact with other players. Should I have seen another player, which I didn't when I was doing it. So
yeah,
I don't know.
Yeah.
Anyway,
I think you nailed it. This feels like the crypto bro AI generative promise that a lot of people have been trying to sell us on. And this is literally the fruits of all that labor right now. And you're going, yeah, I guess it functions as a game, but it's also the worst game you could possibly imagine.
Well, I think actually that one that they fed a bunch of Minecraft footage in, and then it just made a game that looked like Minecraft but didn't have any video game rules behind it because there was no game there.
Right.
It was just it took mouse and keyboard input and then generated video based on that. That I think this is better. This is better than that.
This is better.
I think.
Yeah.
There was user interaction that made sense. It seems to have some basic rules.
Mm-hmm.
That stuff's pretty good. I just I think a lot of the problem we are having with the generative AI stuff is that, and I've done this before too. Like my VR startup, the first thing we did was a talk show that was set in people's game environments from their games.
Yeah.
And the first one we did was Firewatch, which was using the exact same version of Unity. It had all stereo correct shaders. All of the assets were basically, it was like the best possible case for a thing we could take from somebody else's game and drop into our game, and it just worked. And I was like, this is amazing. It only took 5 days to implement this. We're going to do a bunch of these, and it's going to cost us like 10 grand at most to do these. And then never again was one as easy as that, because everybody else either used a different version of Unity, so the shaders weren't compatible. You had to rewrite all the shaders, or like there were a million different things we had. And so it's a false signal, right? Yeah. That Firewatch example being easy was a false signal. And I think programmers have the same problem, because like if you're writing Python scripts, there's a relatively small possibility space between the best Python script in the world that does a bubble sort, and a terrible Python script that does a bubble sort, right? Those are these are CS problems that are relatively solved, and we know what the good solves are and the bad solves are, and people have posted these on the internet for years and years, and Stack Exchange is rich with them, right?
Right.
So when you're talking about making a 3D representation of a mountain, the possibility space of that is like, if this is the possibility space of your Python bubble sort script, the possibility space of your mountain view is infinite in either direction. Because you could do like a painterly thing, and you could do 500 different painterly things. You could do watercolors, you could do paint markers, you could do pen and ink, you could do Chinese brush paintings. Like there's an infinite space, and it's infinite in all axes. Yeah. Whereas the programming is infinite in maybe one or two at most, for the most part. Yeah. So I think a lot of the generative AI hype is based on false signal, based on programming. This actually being quite good for a lot of programming. Yeah. Like workaday programming jobs.
Yeah, I think it was a couple of weeks ago. I don't know if you follow Mark Cuban on Bluesky or socials or whatever else. Usually I like 90% agree with kind of what he says and where he stands on a lot of different issues. But there was one particular one that he posted based on generative AI that said, basically, if you sit down with a generative AI program and as a beginner in a subject, you could start shooting out like master's level, like master degree level work based on that output. And I went, that's not how that works, because the only way that works is if you know enough to know if the computer's BSing you, or know if you have false output, or know how to correct or check the work that's being done. And again, speaking of the promise of generative AI, and it's going to replace everyone, it's like, it doesn't take a beginner and make them an expert. You still need an expert to verify the data is correct. And right now, AI is not able to verify that data is in any way correct. It can take an expert, and in some ways it may make them more efficient, but we've also seen a bunch of cases of lawyers trying to submit AI generated case law where it just makes up cases on the fly, or it, applies the wrong law or makes up a law. It doesn't make an expert better either, unless the expert knows better than the output is giving.
But it sounds real good, man.
It
Okay,
sounds
that's
really
the thing.
good.
It's real convincing. This is I wrote my newsletter about this last. Well, okay, so two things. Tech Potato in the chat. I'm going to call out Ian because I love Ian.
Hi, Ian.
But he says it's all procedural. I don't know if you talked to your chat during this, Jeff. I'm sorry.
Oh, yeah,
I apologize.
absolutely.
Okay,
Absolutely.
okay. So he says it's all procedural, and yeah, it is all procedural. But the difference, like in a video game, so I worked on a video game that had procedural combat. Right, our enemy spawns and the enemies that you received were all procedurally done, and it was every time you play the game, it's different. That takes an incredible amount of work. Like, for example, for the first 3 months that we had that system and when we would bring in external playtest, we would play the game. We understood how everything worked. We would have a good time. It felt hard. It was really great. When we brought in external playtesters who weren't familiar with the weapons and the kind of unique powers in the game and the things you had to, the combat toolbox that you had to deal with the enemies, they wouldn't make it past the first hallway because our procedural enemy spawning was hitting them too hard and too fast. So they didn't have the time to learn that. And it turns out, it's really depressing when you bring people in for 3 months and they just get their butts kicked over and over again and then like play your game for essentially 4 minutes over a 2-hour period, right?
Yeah.
That feels bad. The other part is it's a really hard problem to make procedural stuff feel deliberate and intentional as if it was crafted by humans. And usually you do that by really limiting possibility space, right? So like if you look at something like Dead Cells or Spelunky, which are procedurally generated games, they have tile sets that are placed procedurally based on rules that they've iterated on by like just running the procedural thing and watching it mess up and then building another edge case to deal with the errors, right? So like the rule in Spelunky is that you have an entrance at the top of the level and an exit at the bottom of the level, and there has to be a path through the level without using bombs to get from the entrance to the exit. And it has to be no more than like 3 blocks high so that the character can jump up. And you have to be able to do it without using any things. And even with the basic rules there, it still makes mistakes. You still occasionally, like 1 out of 100 runs, will get a run that's just completely blocked.
Yeah.
And it's just because they never found that edge case where the 2 tiles lined up badly and it seemed like it was good, but it wasn't.
Or they put an obstacle into a position where it didn't quite line up with the right axes of intersect of the next tile or whatever else. I believe his name is Matt. He's the lead developer for Streets of Rogue. He actually does a fantastic breakdown in some of his devlogs for Streets of Rogue 2 talking about procedural generation of the worlds and the tile sets and everything else, and breaks it down basically saying like, I will curate individual buildings, and then we will generate a heat map for the ground layout and then the road maps and everything else. And then just like you said, you will go down and you will find those edge cases, find the places that it didn't apply properly, find a 4-lane road that all of a sudden becomes a 2-lane road because it didn't know how to connect those 2 tiles. And you give the system enough information that if that happens, you can narrow the road and then connect them. So it looks natural and it looks curated when in fact it's really not. It's still procedural. So yeah, he does a great breakdown in a couple of those videos if people are interested in this kind of thing.
But the point of all of that is it's an incredible amount of work to make something that's procedurally generated feel like it's made by humans, which is the difference between this AI flight sim thing and say like your average Roblox flight sim game that probably looks about the same, but that'll have like there'll be rings to fly through. There'll be things to do that are going to provide you ideally some sort of skill challenge and a feeling of mastery when you perform them and excel at them. And then it'll make something flash on the screen and drop some dopamine for you, which this game doesn't do either. So like, yeah, it's just I'm not going to sit here and say things aren't a game because we had this conversation about Gone Home 10 years ago at this point, but like this you're not going to get. You might get AI assisted programming and build the next great game, but you're not going to have a game that was it was generated in 30 minutes with AI. No, that's bunk, and it's not making 50 grand a month in real money. It's phony money. Anyway,
it's making 50 grand a month in meme coins is what it's doing.
Yeah, it's part of the latest pump and dump. So
yep.
I mean, maybe chargebackstop.com is giving them that much money. I don't know. I don't know what the chargebackstop business model is.
Chargebackstop.com. There you go.
Yeah. The enterprise chargeback management platform. There we go. Yeah, this is, yeah. Anyway.
I mean, they got great placement within the game. I mean, that's prime real estate there.
You got to get in early. That's chargebackstop.com mountain.
Yeah.
You know?
How do you get in early enough to basically get the Hollywood sign? Like, that's what I want to know.
Well, but the thing is, they could just get the AI to generate a new mountain, and then you could have Craft Computing Mountain just between the camera and Charge Backstop Mountain.
There's
nothing
true.
protecting them.
That's right. Yeah.
You gotta think like an entrepreneur here. Always be hustling, Jeff. That's the thing. Always be hustling.
Always be hustling. That's my problem. Is I am always hustling, and God, am I tired?
I mean, look, I know that life. Yeah,
as one hustler to another.
Look, you at some point I'll sleep. But yeah, for now I'm just thinking about a podcast tomorrow morning and newsletter on Friday. So
yeah. We do have a couple super chats. Alexander sends in $5. Thank you very much, Alex. Craft, I'm building a custom NAS for storing files. I already bought the drives, but I'm wondering, should I go 6 or 8 core? Really, that kind of determines what cores are you looking at, like what CPU platform. But in like general terms, if you're looking at like, do I buy like a Ryzen 3600 or a 3800 or something like that? If you're planning on just doing a NAS just to host your files, 6 cores is more than fine. I would spend your extra money on maybe a little bit of RAM for some cache space if you have a ZFS file system or something like that. If you are planning on running other services, more headroom is always a good thing. So if you want to run some VMs or some Docker containers or things like that, more CPU space is definitely going to be felt there. So,
well, and if
without
you want to do
knowing
Plex
specifics,
too,
yeah,
like if you're doing Plex, Quick Sync is better than AMD's video encode.
Absolutely.
I mean, AMD's video code isn't supported right now.
Correct.
And Quick Sync and NVIDIA are. So
yep.
So
yeah. With very limited information, if you're running more services, more cores is usually better. It won't benefit your NAS at all, but it will benefit your server as a whole. And yeah, if you're running Plex or media streaming of any kind, something with QuickSync or some kind of encoder card is going to be life-changing if you're running anything above, an H.264 and 1080p. So
Jeff, I have a question. Sure. Oh, you have another super chat, but I have a question that rolls off of this.
Go for it. Yeah.
So I've done the other thing. I live in California where electricity is really expensive these days. And I have a relatively underpowered Synology dual core. It's like a dual core Celeron. It's old. It has QuickSync, but it's a bad version of QuickSync. I don't use it for that kind of stuff.
Right.
And then I also bought a little like 12th gen Intel or 11th gen Intel B-Link NUC style box. And that NUC runs the heavy stuff. It runs Plex. It runs my daughter's Minecraft server. It runs a couple of game servers and other stuff, all in Docker containers. And the stuff on the desktop, I mean, on the Synology is relatively light. And when I measured the power, now admittedly I was coming from like a Broadwell E or something, I ended up way under on idle power consumption. I was like, it's like 20 watts for the Synology with the drives and 5 for the 11th gen Celeron NUC. But it adds a lot of complexity to the getting the computers talking to each other because I'm using Linux and I have to match user IDs and all that stuff. And I wondered if there's an easier way to do that than like manually matching user IDs between the two machines, or if that's just what I'm stuck doing forever and ever because I made this choice.
There's a number of ways to use file repositories on one machine for compute on another. I haven't done a lot of that. I usually try to build a lot of all-in-one servers, and so it'll have a NAS plus all of the other services, and I've got 32 cores or whatever else. But I'm also one of the crazy ones with a server rack in my garage because power is 7.4 cents a kilowatt hour here. 76 cents with transmission last month. At my peak. It's expensive.
We
don't have peak or off hour or any. It's 7.4 hard coded.
Oh my God.
98% hydroelectric.
I love it. I grew up in TVA land. I understand. It's good. Hydroelectric's nice. So I don't understand like when people complain about an extra 30 watts of power draw. I'm like,
that's what, 6 cents a month for me. Like,
Yeah,
so,
it's it's a little bit more than that here.
yeah. But typically what I will try to do in situations like that, like right now I do have a dedicated NAS box, and then I've also got a VM host, and they're two completely different boxes. For my Plex server, it's not running in a Docker container. It's an actual, full VM running Ubuntu server and things like that. It's just an SMB share over to the next. And so as long as you give SMB permissions to your NAS to allow that specific VM access to the files, you're good to go. And that also makes it somewhat portable. And so if your Plex server up and dies one day, or you need to transfer it to another box or anything else, you just give it the credentials and reconnect your file share.
Okay. I'm doing it the hard way then, I think.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, it sounds like you're using NFS for your link.
Yeah, I think I was using NFS because I think I had problems with Samba and Docker, but that might have been I came from the FreeNAS world where everything was, you just put stuff in jails and it was really easy.
Right.
And Docker, when I set this up, was still confusing and scary to me. And now it's still confusing, but it's not scary anymore. So, we're baby steps, I guess.
Yeah. I don't run a lot of Dockers, and a lot of people ask me why, and it's simply because I have the overhead to be able to run full VMs, and I would much rather do that than shared kernel and everything else, and you worry about, I ran an upgrade on this, and now all of a sudden I broke 3 services within 3 containers that so.
See, I'm trying to run everything at 5 watts idle, so it's a little different territory,
which is a great goal. I used to run a lot of Broadwell E, Haswell E based servers, and I think at one point my idle draw on my server rack was almost 900 watts.
I don't, when I hooked the watt meter up to the Broadwell E machine after I took the drives out of it, I was like, oh wow, no wonder I could have replaced this 3 years ago, and the savings in power would have saved my would have eaten the cost, right? It would have covered the entire cost.
Most Broadwell E, if you hook a power gauge to them, they'll be about 100 watts at idle. Regardless.
That seems right.
Yeah. I actually a couple years ago went through a cleansing of all my Broadwell boxes. I've got right now a 64 core Rome that's doing 95% of the heavy lifting in my server rack, and then a couple GPUs in there for various services. And then what is my? I don't even remember what's in my TrueNAS server right now.
I made the mistake of hooking the watt meter up to my gaming PC, and it's in my Home Assistant dashboard now, so it just tells me. And it's just idling at 223 watts right now, which I'm going to hit the balanced power profile button and bring us down a little bit, I guess. I don't know. We'll see.
I will say it was really fun benchmarking the 5090 when we did that a couple of months ago, because I ran into an issue that whenever I installed the press drivers for the 5090 on our benchmark system, which is the 9800X3D AMD kit, which was the ASRock Crosshair or Asus Crosshair 7 and whatever else that came with that. I'm like, that's a great platform. I'm just going to leave that on my test bench, and then we'll put whatever graphics cards are coming out in that. And I did that. I installed the press drivers and immediately got a black screen, and the card refused to boot up properly. I wasn't even getting a BIOS screen at times. It would work just fine if the drivers weren't installed, but as soon as I installed the drivers, it would get like a flash of a Windows desktop, and then like a 1024 768 resolution, and then black screen, and then you'd go to reboot the PC and it wouldn't even post anymore. So I ended up contacting NVIDIA and going, I think I have a serious issue with my 5090. I think there's a problem with the card. And so obviously that got their full attention, and so we ran through a number of troubleshooting steps. Eventually and that was one of the only power supplies that I had that had a 600 watt output on it for the 12 volt high power. And so
Yeah,
I'm like,
because not all of them did on the originals. Yeah.
yeah, a lot of power supplies for ATX 3.0 are still 450s, and so you have to have specific power supplies. I only had 2 that did that, and the other one was in my Threadripper like editing workstation, and I'm like, I don't want to mess with that, so let's get it working on this. Eventually, I did end up taking the 5090 out, putting it in my editing rig. And that's a Threadripper 7980X 64 core. Speaking of high idle, draws like 220, 230 watts on idle. 600 watts on the CPU when you're just cranking that, plus whatever GPU you happen to throw in there. I put the 5090 in there, and I'm like, well, I have to benchmark it, so let's go ahead and run 3D Mark. As soon as 3D Mark started, my UPS
it made the bad noise?
It made the bad noise.
No.
My UPS made bad noises.
Oh, I didn't even think about that.
Because all of a sudden I'm pulling like 17 amps out of a 1,000-watt UPS unit.
Yeah, that's bonkers. Well, it was funny when I bought this house, I had an electrician come in and I put more power into the place where the TV is, because like, hey, that makes sense. And then I was like, why don't you run a 20 amp circuit into the PC spot?
Yeah.
And they were like, what are you doing with a PC that you're going to need 20 amps here? And I said, yeah, I talked to Tony Tomasi like 5 years ago, and he's like, 1,600 watts. That's the max we can do on a GPU. And I was like, they're never going to hit that, but I'll be ready just in case.
Yeah.
And like, it's bonkers. We're in ridiculous territory here.
I have dual 20 amp circuits behind my server rack, dedicated. They don't share anything. And Intel sent over a dual Granite Rapids 128 core box to review. I was doing some benchmarks, and obviously it's too loud in my garage to run that thing at full bore and stand at the KVM console. I'm like, oh God. So I was downstairs in my office, which I have a split level house. I've got a garage, and then it steps up into the kitchen, and then we've got a living room, and then there's a split level, so down a half level and to a stair landing, and then down another half level to my basement, and then I'm around the corner. This is a 7 or 8 inch thick concrete wall behind me. I turned that server on, and I started hitting it with a load, and I can hear it in here.
Oh my God. Too loud.
Yeah,
it's too loud.
Well, so I'm doing some benchmarks on the server, and everything's going pretty well. And all of a sudden my SSH session stops responding. And I went, crap, what happened? And I'm like, did it crash? Did it do this? And I can't get it back, and I can't ping it. And then I realize I can't ping anything because my network went down. And I'm like, well, that's really weird. So I'm like, let me go check the switch. And so I got up, walked out to my garage, and I realized when I hit the kitchen that I can't hear anything. And I opened the door to my garage, and all I hear is my 3000 VA UPS going beep, and the lights are off, and no fans are going because that Grand Rapids box tripped my 20 amp breaker.
Wow.
And killed the UPS in the process. It took it down. It overvolted my UPS.
Wow, that sucks. I mean, look, this is why Wendell has the 3-phase into his test lab, right?
Yes.
That's you should do your super chats.
Yes.
I've got a 3-phase thing to tell you about that's gonna curl your hair. It's
excellent.
Terrifying.
Got a couple more super chats. American Cosworth, thank you so much. $5. Are we discussing the outcome of post-employment economy? We're starting to, although we need to figure out how everyone's going to live after that. But yeah, we're talking about the impetus of that. An AI-designed product manufactured in a robotic factory delivered by driverless vehicles. I don't like that.
There's a lot of bad there. There's a lot of bad idea genes in that one. The driverless vehicles alone, it seems like anyway.
Yeah. Like the Waymos, they've been doing all right. I know you have a lot of them down by you.
Man,
how's that going?
Look, the Waymos need help, Jeff.
Yeah.
The Waymos I watched a guy. So there was a Waymo parked on the road in front of PC World as I was trying to go home the other day. And it was just sitting there with its flashers on, nothing in front of it, nothing blocking it. It just was afraid that there was something there and was in fail-safe mode. And I'm sure it was like trying to bring somebody up in the data center,
Yeah.
in the call center, to like look through the cameras and be like, nope, it's okay, you can go now.
Yeah.
But like they're just a constant impediment. They suck. It's and people know that they are incredibly cautious. So like you see people now that they're on the freeway, you see people like cutting them off real close and then they slam on the brakes, and it's not where this is going to be a bumpy transition as we move to self-driving.
So you're treating the Waymos exactly like you see a Cybertruck towing something. Give it as wide a berth as possible because it could break at any moment.
It's not just a Cybertruck towing, it's just a Cybertruck.
Just a Cybertruck in general.
I was driving home in the rain, there was a Cybertruck beside me, and I was like, man, I gotta either slow down or speed up.
Yeah.
Because who knows what's going to happen to this thing. The glue could come undone, anything.
I live in a small enough area. There was someone bought a Cybertruck, and I saw it driving near me one day, and then later in the afternoon, one of my other co-hosts, Rhett, saw it driving near him about 25 miles away. And it was parked at a brewery, and I'm like, okay, good. It lives over by you, not over by me. Awesome. And then about 2 weeks later, I saw 5 miles from where he lives, that Cybertruck wrecked itself on a trail. I saw it on Reddit. And I'm like, I know that trail. I know that truck. Oh, darn.
That's too bad. I'm so sad. Not sad. Hashtag not sad.
Cosworth sends over another $5. Problem with AI is it's just convincing enough that it's being used to cut jobs, which it shouldn't. It's a tool for wage suppression by certain businesses. Absolutely. Whenever you hear CEOs and shareholders get all excited about AI and potential savings of AI, what they're talking about is the wetware. They're not talking about support or infrastructure. They're happy to spend, $500,000 on a data center to power AI if that means they don't have $700,000 in payroll to pay every year, because the $500,000 is a one-time investment.
And it's deductible too. Capital expenditures are people love capital expenditures.
Exactly. Yeah, that's all tax-free dollars when you spend it that way. Whereas even a $500,000 or $100,000 employee, you're spending about $170,000 because you have Social Security tax and federal tax and state tax and insurance and everything else that you're paying for this employee. So, yeah, if you can replace a $100,000 employee with $10,000 worth of AI investment, and you can spend $1 million in AI investment, that's a lot off the payroll, isn't it?
Even if it's a $100,000 employee and you replace it with $100,000 worth of AI investment, if that money isn't $100,000 a year, it's a net dub for the company.
That's exactly right.
I wrote about this in the Tech Pod this week. The one thing that I think the generative AI stuff is, sorry, not in the Tech Pod, on What's Next. The one thing that the generative AI is really, really good at is being plausible, right? Mm-hmm. So it means that it's really the perfect spam creation tool.
Yeah.
Right. You look at what happened with air filters is the first example I thought about, but the home air filters, there was a company that was selling, hey, we'll write AI generated reviews of products and put them on your pages for your old media brand that's ranking pretty high. And we'll generate just a bunch of affiliate revenue without you having to do anything. Just let's put these. And so you saw them pop up on like Glamour and Good Housekeeping and I want to say Teen Vogue, but I think they wouldn't do that. But there were a bunch of like old media brands that had good page rank for general purpose stuff, and then they started doing AI generated air filter reviews that were based on user reviews and scrapes, and it was just it was content theft, but untraceable.
Yeah.
And they tanked a bunch of sites like Wirecutter and some other places that were specializing on air filter reviews. Mm-hmm. And we wouldn't have known about this except for one of the small sites that did the air filter reviews complained and did enough of a stink that they got Google to make some cutouts in the way search ranks works for specific kinds of categories. And like it's such a good tool for spam. You can create a website that focuses on reviewing small form factor machines now out of nothing in about an afternoon and $30 worth of open AI credit. So
and not only spam generation, but straight up scam and phishing schemes have gone through the roof as well. Me as a media outlet and as a creator and things like that, I have publicly accessible email addresses for, hey, get in touch with me, let me work with your company, that kind of thing. The number of companies reaching out to me lately, legitimate companies trying to promote things that I have heard about. I got one from gosh, let me just pull up the list.
Is this the segment where we read our emails? Because I have a couple of bangers in here.
I got a couple of bangers, but I'm talking like specifically about phishing, phishing attempts. I have emails from, and I put "from" in the hardest of quotes, NVIDIA, Music Maker, Sony, Vegas Creative, Painter 2003, Magic X, another Vegas Pro, Bethesda. I mean, that's just glancing over here. And when you click on these, I'll click on the one from NVIDIA. Greetings, Craft. Allow me to introduce myself. I'm Sarah, and I'm a PR manager with NVIDIA Corporation. We appreciate your activity on YouTube and respect the wonderful quality of your material and the ability to engage and uplift your viewers. We're thrilled to announce that we'll soon be introducing a new series of AI-driven graphics cards. This new lineup features innovative features. Most of them aim to revolutionize new ways to create an unprecedented workflow acceleration. Yeah, that's PR
plausible.
speak. That's PR speak.
You just happen to know the PR person for NVIDIA, so it's less effective for you, probably.
Yeah, I went, hey, you're not X, you're not Y, you're not Z, you're not A, you're not B. I know everyone who should be above you. You're not any of them. Also, it came from a suspicious domain, but that's about the only thing about this. But this could also be a PR firm working on behalf of a company, because I get reached. It's 50-50 whether or not a company reaches out direct or a PR firm working on behalf of them reaches out to me to sample a product or whatever else. And so you can't just use, oh, that didn't come from nvidia.com as a black and white, test anymore. But it's like, Sarah, you don't exist. You're not Ben, you're not Jacob. Like, I know the people over there, and you're not either of them.
I get there's a company in China that really wants me to buy steel from them. Like, really, they are so excited about the amount of steel that they have to sell me. And sometimes it's just like raw steel ingots, like plates, whatever.
Yeah.
Sometimes though, on good days, they're like, hey, Will, I want you to know we've got some exclusive containers of M3, M4, and M5 screws coming through right now. You can get a container of screws for just a few $1,000s. You're going to have to get it through. You pick it up in Long Beach, pick it up in Oakland, whichever you want. There you go. Yeah, screws for days. Yeah. Do you want a container? I know a guy. If you need them, let me know.
Do you know how I buy screws anymore?
I'm guessing by the bucket. It looks like.
Yeah. Again, I'm trying to start up my own devices business, which means I need a metric shit ton of M2, M2.5, M3 screws for various things in specific lengths and specific head types and specific bit types. And so yeah, I bulk order a lot of machine screws anymore.
Jeff, it looks like you have some loose screws there. I didn't want to say anything.
They're all in a box. They're all contained. They may look loose, but they are all contained.
Okay, that's good. That's good. Can I tell my so I went to the San Francisco Silicon Valley Electronics Flea Market this weekend.
Yes, I do want to hear about this.
This is they've been doing this for a really long time. It's been around forever. It usually happens in the South Bay. These days it's in Saratoga, California, which is down by San Jose at a community college. And it happens in the parking lot from 6 a.m. to noon, I think the second Sunday of most summer and spring months. So it started, this one was the first one, and the last one is in October, I think. And then the one exception is May, when it's not on Mother's Day weekend, because some things are
because no one would show up. Right.
It would be ill-advised. Yeah. So so I went down with some friends, and it's always an adventure. I have a post on Bluesky about it. If you hit my profile page, you can scroll down a little bit and find it. But like this time, there were There were some there were like Sun machines, Sun Microsystems machines. There were some old Spark stations, which is what I took like CS 100 when I was learning C coding in college 100 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
They had an O2, which was one of the machines I had to maintain when my first post school job. They had some PVMs. There's that column underneath the analog TV on the left there for video viewers is a boule. That's two raw, I think they're 200 millimeter discs, maybe they're 100 millimeter discs. I can't remember, but they slice those to make wafers. Somebody in the replies said they should just call this the place you sell the shit you stole from work 20 years ago. Because it's a lot of that. Like there's a lot of value. Like there's the bottom right one is caddies for 200 millimeter wafers.
Oh yeah.
So
that's funny.
let's see. Yeah, like it's just a bunch of like one time we were there and somebody was like, oh yeah, my dad worked on quantum fireballs. I don't know if you remember, or Bigfoots. Bigfoots were the 5 1/4 inch hard drives from the 90s.
Compaq used them a lot in their old system. Yeah.
They loved a slow hard drive at Compaq. That was their favorite. So I was down there and I sent you a link in the Zoom chat. But there was a guy that had what looked like one of the original G4 Tower Mac Pros, the ones that looked like a cheese grater, and didn't have a G4 Mac Pro in it.
That would have been a G5, but yeah, the G4s were the mirror door, the old rounded ones.
The backwards, gray candy iMacs.
Yeah.
So it was G5 Mac Pro.
Yeah. And
he'd gutted it, and it had on the back, it had a note that said, rotary phase converter, 10 horsepower, $700, generates 3-phase 240 from 1-phase 240, and it had a ripped off pigtail on the end. And I looked at that and I was like, this is the scariest thing I've ever seen here. And it was right next to a laser. It was right next to a laser that said 40 watt laser. And written on it in whiteout was kind of wobbly, be careful. And I was like, I don't know what kind of wobbly means in the context of a 40 watt laser, but I don't want to find out.
Just like a CO2 tube laying out on a table.
No, it was enclosed. The tube was enclosed. Okay. It was very professional, super professional, really legit. But like, I don't want a 40 watt wobbly laser. That's a scary laser for me. But the 3-phase converter in the old G5 Mac Pro, pretty scary, I think. I'm sure it's probably fine. It looked like they did a nice job, and I don't know enough about electricity to know if this is a good idea or a bad idea, but my vibe check on this is it's a real bad idea.
Your vibe check is correct.
Okay.
So you can upconvert 1-phase into 2-phase to go from 110 to 220. You need non-unified circuits. They have to be completely separate circuits that don't share any path whatsoever. And you can take your 110 and add it to another 110 and wind up with a 220
working. Okay.
I mean, the basics are there.
Yeah.
So yes, you can do that. It is very ill-advised. You have to remember that twice the voltage is half the current, but if you're still working off a 15 amp and a 15 amp 110 circuit, you still have a 15 amp 240 circuit, each of which has their own overcurrent breaker on them. So you could break half a leg and end up with a 110 feeding into a 220 device. Brownout situations, it's not a good idea.
Like, you're going to turn this on and half the neighborhood's going to start browning out, getting weird. Yeah. Anyway, it was like, it's a nice job. You did a nice job on the wiring and everything. The capacitors in there are a little scary, I think. So, anyway, yeah, don't make your own 3-phase is my takeaway from this conversation. Thank you, Jeff.
Yeah. I know just enough to be dangerous. I know enough when to call someone who knows more than me.
Yeah. No, that's like, look, I can wire a light switch pretty easily. I'm not going to change it. I'm not going to upgrade my box, my power box. That's a bad idea. I know enough to know that. Like, that's where when the hot water heater breaks, I let somebody come and fix that. That's a somebody else problem. That's not a me problem.
Yeah. I mean, I've done a hot water heater before. I've done, I'm fairly handy around the house, and I know how to turn off breakers, and I know how to check for active and whatnot. But
I'd probably do an electric gas hot water heater, but the gas plumbing, I like
gas terrified.
I can do a plumbing, but I'm probably good.
Yeah. Like I'll do minor electrical work on my house. I've ran a couple new outlets here. I've added a light switch in our living room. Our house was built in like 75, and so it was back in the style of like, let's just have like lamps everywhere and not like a single light bulb in the center of a room. And so your switches turn on outlet, switch turn on lamps. And it's like I want a light in here. Like we have a 14-foot tall ceiling in our living room. It's like I need a light in this room.
Yeah, well, look, I live in a house that was built in 1956, so I feel your pain.
Yeah, you're right there with me. Yeah.
Except for we don't have any control wires. Ours are all just 2 wires through the walls, and it's choices were made.
Yeah. Couple more super chats. Man. We're working our way through them. I love Scotch. I love Scotch too. Sends over $2. Thank you so much. Retiring a 1 petabyte array. Where to sell SAS 10 terabyte and 18 terabyte drives.
Oh man.
Lots of different places. You could start with my Discord. You could probably liquidate them there and never leave. Costs you $1 to get in, but we do have a buy sell trade section. And a lot of people are willing to ship, and you can post them there. No charge, no commission. Just post your listing and make sure you ship things out. So that's about all there is to it. Other than that, I know there's a lot of recertifiers and refurbishers who buy like bulk equipment and things like that. You could do that. Otherwise, you could onesie-twosie it on eBay, but then you have to deal with 12 and 20% eBay fees for electronics and things like that. And good luck selling a petabyte worth of drives on Facebook Marketplace, because there's only 3 other people near you who are interested in it.
What if one of those people needs a petabyte of drives, though? Think about it.
Is that person going to buy a petabyte worth of used drives?
I mean, look,
someone might, but not at the price you want.
Yeah, there are good ideas and bad ideas, Jeff. But I think the Discord. I think you find the right community of people on Discord, you'll move those drives pretty fast.
Yeah. There's also look at Reddit communities. Look at PC sales or home lab sales is another one. People selling a lot of home lab gear, a lot of it, used hard drives and switches and servers and things like that. So
I know in the TechPod Discord, a good lot of drives popped up on home lab sales a few weeks ago, and people got real excited about it. So
Green sends over another $5. Thank you, Green. I want to say I told you that the dual processor GNR system plus a full bank of memory that I was testing was well in excess of 1400 bare system. I'm assuming 1400 watts because Granite Rapids. Green tests memory that for a living and works with a lot of, we'll just say, undisclosed platforms. I like talking to Green. He can talk about things unofficially. GNR Granite Rapids, full bank of memory that he was testing was in excess of 1400 watts. So that's 24 DIMMs and 2 CPUs.
Granite Rapids is the big cores Xeon.
That's the 16 cores. Yeah, that's the 6900P 128 performance cores. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a lot of Xeon.
It's a lot of chooch. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, look, I bet it was fast. How did your 7-zip do in that? Was pretty fast?
It was impressive. It was very impressive. Okay. What's been really fun is I love testing some of the newest hardware that comes out and casually setting world records in my office.
I was there when you did one at that AMD AI event last year.
Yeah. No, so that was me and Jordan. We were remoted in, and we were setting Y-Cruncher world records on the stream. We set a couple of them. I think officially 6 is what we set there at the show, and then we also had a number of like 5 through 2 finishes as well. I tell people about that. I tell normies that the people run zip benchmarks and other like, hey, we're doing something massively parallel and that you would never think of as a world record thing, and then
they just go talk to somebody else, usually if we're in like a social situation or something.
Totally.
So,
yeah.
Yeah.
But, I was testing the 5090, and
Mhm.
I think I set a number 2 score all time on it's either Port Royal, or it was one of the other. It was one of the 3D marks. I got a number 2 all time score
Wow.
testing that. Obviously couldn't submit it yet.
Yeah, that's always the downside.
Yeah, I can't submit it because it was pre-NDA, and so couldn't submit it. But the record only beat me by like 150 or 200 points or something like that. And their average GPU temp was negative 38C.
Oh, so they were nitrogen cooling at 4090
Oh,
probably.
yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
So just out, you're going like, yeah, it's a world record. There it is. And I did a couple of those on Granite Rapids. I've done a couple of those on Turin. So yeah, it's
it's nice to have hardware coming out that breaks records again. Last year was a little up and down. So
yeah. And then Cosworth sends over another $2. Thank you so much. Now we are on Dead Internet Theory. I like it. Yeah. Speaking of all the AI generated reviews and things like that.
Yeah, it's grim. It's not good.
Yeah.
The internet turns out has been really good to me. I'm sad if we're killing it for something as stupid as generative AI, but maybe there's still time. We can still turn it around.
We can still turn it around. Safe spaces of human only resistance.
I mean, the nice thing that's come out of it is, like, I think an indie blogging scene has started up again in a way that was kind of only existed. Like it's people are writing about this stuff in a way that they haven't in 10 years in a lot of places.
Yeah.
So it's that in that regard, I'm okay with it, I guess.
Yeah. There's going to be a lot of filth to sort through in the upcoming years, as far as what is real, what is not. The line between those is blurring every single day even more. But I'm still here. I have a full video posted on my thoughts on AI generation. It's specifically around like images, but I've also extended that into like voice and art and things like that. And my take is probably a little bit more nuanced than yours, Will, in that one of the biggest things is art theft. Is you're taking from one artist and you're generating things and then you're presenting it as your own. I definitely see that, and my standpoint is every artist should always be compensated for what they create. But the little thing in the back of my brain always likes to bring up the point of stealing from one is plagiarism, stealing from many is research. And that's a hard bridge for me to like fully get across when I say it, like in the context of, I'm not saying that someone should sit down at a computer, hammer out a prompt, and then publish the book that comes out of that prompt or publish the artwork that comes out of that prompt. But when it comes to like the creative process, when it comes to me as a creator, like I'm a musician. I am a creator in both the artistic and the technical sense. There are some things that I don't do very well though, like draw concept art for something that is in my brain. Am I going to go out and hire a concept artist for something like on my channel that I don't really have the budget for? Probably not. And so would that idea ever see fruition? No. But could I use AI generated art to get me started in the right direction, and then I can refine those results and then present it? Is that still not me creating art even though it's AI generated in some facet? So like where's the line?
Okay, so I feel like there's a lot to this, right? There's a lot here, and the Copyright Office said, hey, if you just write a prompt and then take something out, that's not copyrightable.
Correct.
But if you write a prompt and then you do some modifications to it, then that becomes human generated work at that point.
Right.
And I think, I mean, do I like the idea that we've basically invented the Industrial Revolution, but for content theft? No, I'm not a fan of that.
Right.
Like actually making it less traceable makes it worse, I think, right? Because like you can say, hey, I want a picture of Jeff from Craft Computing, but I want his background to be in the style of Lisa Frank from 1994. And you're going to get something that is a Lisa Frank background from a drawing that she did in 1994.
Yeah.
And like, I think for me personally, and I'll go and tell you, like, generating art, coming up with art for newsletters is really hard.
Yeah.
Because what used to be the, hey, you can pay me $20 a month for royalty-free images to use that are worse quality than what you'd get on Getty or something like that. It'll cost you $80 a pop.
Yeah.
Those sites are all crappy AI art now.
Yep.
And I'm not going to use them. So it makes my life actively harder by not doing this.
Yeah.
I've made the choice to not do that. I think it's a personal choice. I'm not going to judge anybody for doing that. I get it.
Yeah.
But from a pragmatic, hey, I also make video games for money that I want to sell.
Totally.
I'm not letting anybody on any of the teams that I work on use AI to put for anything that goes in the game, because the copyright status of it is completely up in the air. And I don't want to spend $5 million making something that then we're not going to be able to copyright, and people will just be able to download for free.
Right.
With no protections to us as the creators of that thing. That's incredibly irresponsible for me. So
yeah, the only thing that I've ever used AI for is I've generated a background for an ad read that I did because I wanted it to be set in a certain location and I didn't want to pay $150 for a stock photo of an office. And so I generated an office behind me. And you know, that was part of a process that was able to get my creative vision out there. And I used like green screen effect and whatnot, and it was great. It worked really, really well. And I know a couple other creators, they've used AI voice generation for doing ad reads. And so I'm not going to call anyone out, but they were in chat earlier, has done voiceover on a plane and sent it out for approval and gotten the email back that the ad was approved and never spoke a word on the plane. And you know, but then that's them recreating their own voice with an AI tool. That
is in the same realm of like using Whisper to do transcription, right?
Totally.
Like I think doing transcription, I think doing if you're using an image recognition engine to add alt text and alt text to images and stuff like that, I think that's a fantastic service and is really good.
Totally.
It's purely the like for me the generative use of creating something that's going to be used just like for me it's the generative use of the art is the problem.
Yeah.
If you're stealing the art so that you can recognize what pictures of dog, like especially a picture of a dog and a cat and a tractor, that's fine. Like I have no problem with that. If you're using the art to shut out bazillions of people who like
and publish similar artistic work. Yeah.
Or even not even that. Like I honestly feel bad for all the amateur and like budding photographers. It used to be that having a good digital camera and a good eye meant that you could go make a decent living while you were getting like shutter snaps in and learning your craft.
That's how I made a living for about 3 or 4 years in the early 2000s, was doing some wedding photography and things like that, you know, as a freelance photographer. And so totally.
A lot of these jobs that the AI is going to like the it's like high skill, low expertise jobs is the ones that are the deep ones. And those are going to get eaten up, and we're going to kill our pipeline for the people that do the high skill, high expertise parts of this job, because there's going to be no way for them to get from, hey, I want to learn to do this, but I need to spend 5 years or 10 years learning how to get good at it and eating at the same time. And it's gonna hurt us all. Plus, there was that Microsoft thing the other day that said it's actively eroding our cognitive abilities, relying on the machines to think for us, which I don't know, also seems bad.
Yeah, you would. Well, it depends on which administration. Ian just outed himself. Yeah, he goes, "That was me."
He told me that story too. I've never heard this story before. This is clearly what a novel idea.
Yeah. He goes, I didn't want to do the ad read, and I was on a plane, and they needed a revision, and I was on like a 16-hour flight back home.
Yeah.
And he goes, all right, I'll give you a revision. So he got on Whisper, he uploaded 30 seconds worth of audio. He had it read back the revision they wanted. He sent it out, and by the time he landed, he had an approval, and he goes, I'll just use that.
I mean, for what it's worth, totally fine with that.
Totally.
I have no complaint with that. And like, if you wanted to sell voice rights to Jack Daniels so that they could use your voice to sell whiskey, that's totally fine. Like, but I would be really bummed if they made an amalgam of my voice out of samples that they stole from the internet, and then we're just using that, and I didn't get a paycheck on that.
Right, exactly. And that's one of my favorite crafts just to listen to people do is voice acting, is character voices. It's something I wish I could do a lot better. It's something I if I could quit my job today and become a voice character actor, that's what I would absolutely be doing. Either that or be like a machinist or something, like go work on a lathe or a CNC or whatever else. But yeah, hearing that studios are actively trying to copyright the voices that have been created by voice actors over the years. You think of the big ones, like Bart Simpson and Homer and King of the Hill and Futurama and all these others, where studios are actively trying to reserve the rights to the voices that the voice actors created, in the hopes that if the voice actors ask for more money, they can go, well, we'll just AI generate your character from here on out.
Well, so I think they're going to have a problem. I think they're going to have a harder time with that than they think, judging by how things have gone. And I think voice actors have a different union. I shouldn't talk about this. I know that cartoonists have a different union, and people who write cartoons have a different union than the Writers Guild.
Right.
I can't remember how the voice actors work anymore because it's not. I don't know. I know way more writers than voice actors. It turns out. I think it's like in the case of The Simpsons, it's like that show's been on for 35 years, and the people who were 40 when they started are like they're either getting sick and not able to do the voices anymore, dying in some cases, or they just want to retire and be done. And like I think at that point, like, look, the thing that George Lucas did with Harrison Ford and Carrie Fisher and Mark Hamill before Return of the Jedi, where he was like, hey, look, I just want to buy your face rights for action figures for all eternity. And wrote them a check, and they get presumably some cut of all the video games and all of the action figures and all of the all this stuff that comes afterwards that Lucas and Disney got paid for. I feel like that should be the deal, right? Julie Kavner and Julie Kavner is Marge Simpson, and Nancy Cartwright is Bart Simpson, and those people should get paid for that. Like, it's just like Mel Blanc his estate should be getting paid every time somebody does one of his characters from the Looney Tunes. Yeah. So anyway, I don't know, but this is. Every time there's some sort of transformative new technology, this all happened with the internet too. There was a period of time there where music was completely free. Right? We all remember that. And now we pay $10 a month for Spotify, and we don't think about it anymore.
Right.
But like the music industry was completely changed by Napster and LimeWire and all the peer-to-peer services. And as a result, those businesses were completely upended. And honestly, the music industry has never really recovered. It's kind of when you talk to people in LA about AI, they're all, in the back of their head is, man, if we screw this up, we're going to be like the music industry is now, where the money's gone, and the music industry killed the golden goose by messing up Napster.
Yes, absolutely.
And responding to it in an inimical way instead of just embracing and making it part of the plan. So,
right.
Anyway. So now we have 15 streaming services, and they're all getting more expensive all the time, and nobody's making money on them anymore. And everybody's like, well, why do we stop paying Comcast again? This Comcast turns out not that bad. Anyway. Look, the benefit of being old is that you know that nobody is smart, right?
Right.
It's dumbasses all the way down in every industry.
I have told my daughter, who's my oldest daughter is 12, and I've told her one of the things that took me way longer than I would like to admit to figure out is that no one really knows what's going on. You think I know everything and I am so much better and smarter and prepared and I have a plan and no, it's just I've learned how to react to situations when they come up. I don't know what to do in these various situations. I don't know where I'm going. I don't know, like she was 7 when I decided to go full time on YouTube, and it's like, number one, that job didn't exist 10 years prior to that, and number two, it's like, I've never ran a business by myself. I've never done any of this before. I'm literally just figuring out it as I go along, and I've gotten better at it as I go, but that also comes with a lot of strife and a lot of difficulties and a lot of mistakes and things like that. And those are things that you never hear about when you hear about, you know, someone setting out and being an entrepreneur or doing whatever else. Is, yeah, they were stupid when they were 25. Like,
well, wow, I went full. Yeah, it's always the myth of the perfect run of, you know, Mark Zuckerberg in his dorm room harassing women across campus, and then Facebook was born, right?
Right.
And like, it's, in reality, that's not how it works very often. Yeah. So I don't know. I feel like the systems that we deal with on the day-to-day are so spectacularly complicated that, yeah, like does the CEO of Intel understand what Intel's product, like does the CEO of Intel understand what Intel's product line is for the next 5 years? I mean, yeah, they have the same paper sketch that we have, plus a little bit more knowledge. I bet they're really good for the next 2 quarters, and then beyond that, it's a little hand wavy, maybe. Who knows?
Right. I mean, you have certain expectations of the work that will be done based on the knowledge and the expertise of, this is the pace that my engineers go, and the problems that have come up before, and the amount of time it's taken to surpass those problems, but not necessarily what exact particular issues will crop up with this next generation of product that you're trying to develop, and will your engineers be able to overcome it. And so whenever you see a corporate projection, it's exactly what you're talking about. It's like, I know what we're launching next quarter because we started fabbing them this quarter. Yeah. I know on this day we're going to launch this, as long as there's not like a major hardware bug found at 0 hour, you know, about it. But 2 quarters from now, are we ready to start spinning that next product? Where's our network stack at? Where's this guy at? Hey, Jim's been on paternity leave for the last 3 months because whatever else. Is he going to be back in time to be able to start working with his team again on this product? I don't know yet.
The chips are going to be ready, but the chipset's lagging. How are we going to catch that up? Like, we gotta, and everybody who read the Mythical Man Month knows putting more people on it not going to make it go faster most of the time. Like, you could try, but anyway, yeah, it's the whole thing. It's everybody's making it up as they go along, and some people are more truthful about that than others, I think. So anyway,
great transition into Intel got a new CEO today.
Yeah. So I missed like, well, I mean, who's this? What's happening to MJ? What's happening to David Zinser, who were the co-CEOs over the last little bit?
Right. So MJ is going back to product CEO. So they are going to remain the product CEO, and Zinser, I believe, is also staying on as well, going back to his previous role. And then
CFOing, I think.
Yeah, CFO, I believe.
Yeah.
And then Lip-Bu Tan is coming on as the CEO. Now, Lip-Bu was a board member for Intel for actually quite a while, until he left the board in August of 2024. And a lot of what I hear, so Ian and George over at Chips and Cheese did a fantastic podcast earlier today about some of the history behind this. And there's been a lot of rumors about Intel wanting to spin off certain product stacks or certain pieces of their industry to help pay for the company, or transition entirely to a fab company or whatever else, or just be bought up entirely. And I guess part of the downfall of Gelsinger, and potentially part of Lip-Bu leaving the board, was neither one of them agreed with those, with the spinoffs. And so Gelsinger ended up being ousted by the board, and I guess there's been a little bit of a change of face from the board from ousting Gelsinger, because Lip-Bu Tan also disagreed with out with selling off half the company, you know, selling an arm to make it to payday kind of thing.
Was this that they wanted to sell the foundry services and spin it off like AMD did 15 years ago?
With Global Foundries, right. So no, they were actually looking at spinning off the product industry, the product piece. Okay. So the chip making and whatnot, and basically become a foundry. The foundry by revenue is probably the most important piece to Intel moving forward. And there's actually been talks of TSMC telling NVIDIA, hey, if you want 18A, go to Intel. Like they've got the next thing, like it's going to beat our 2 nanometer process for your next node. And so there's been like rumors surfacing about like Intel's 18A actually might hit and be the next big thing. But that doesn't mean their chip industry has to go by the wayside. So
and they've always, I mean, the weird thing about Intel, and I know this mostly from watching Ian's videos, honestly.
Yeah.
Is that they haven't followed industry standards in how their foundry and their chip design works. Right. They've done things the Intel way for the entire history of Intel until very recently.
Yeah.
So it's not like the foundry was a business that they could just start getting outside business on day one if they did that, because they're not set up to bring other people's, you know, it's like, it's like everybody else is using Word and they're on like some Intel specific version of
Word.
They're on
Microsoft Works
from 1933, 1993.
They're on Claris Works.
Yeah, exactly. They're on Claris Works. But like forked and upset, modified for 20 years, gone in a completely different evolutionary direction.
Right.
So that always felt like a weird situation to me, that the board wanted that, when it clearly, like, it made sense for AMD's business a long time ago. It seemed like it didn't make sense at all for Intel's business, the way Intel's foundry businesses have worked for a long time.
Right.
So
yeah,
anyway.
their foundry business is tied so closely to produce their own internal chips.
Yeah.
They're making strides to be able to be a little bit more quote unquote universal, generic, be able to produce other people's chips. And they've done that over the years. But they've done that over the years mostly by buying these other companies and integrating them into the Intel way, see Altera and companies like that, rather than, selling your foundry space to NVIDIA or AMD or whoever else comes through your door. So
they're using Lotus Notes and everybody else is using Exchange. That's exactly right, BC Cameron.
Yes, I like that
Active
even
Directory.
Better.
Yeah.
I did throw the Claris Works in there because I knew you'd get that one. So.
So I was my first job out of school was running Domino servers for a university. It was Lotus was a mistake.
Yeah.
But okay, so when he left last August. He basically left. He did the "it's not you, it's me" breakup and said demands on his time. We're driving the move, so it wasn't hey, screw you guys, I'm leaving. It was I'm just too busy to be on the board of this huge semiconductor company now.
Yeah.
I'm gonna do something else.
Right.
But he's like a both sides of the house guy, right? From traditionally.
Yes. Yeah. He has a very long history in the semiconductor business, working at, what was the name of that company? So Synopsys is one of the two. Cadence is the other one.
Okay.
For some reason, I'd never heard of Cadence before. I knew who Synopsys was, and they're people who write software and do chip design at like a base level. So your memory controllers and your core-to-core interconnects and things like that. These are the people who write the algorithms to be able to put that into silicon and make all the connections work. He worked for Cadence, which very, very large company, very well respected. I just never heard of it before. That one came out of left field for me, and that's just me.
It's one of those pieces of software that, like, if you aren't in the chips and fab business, you probably would have never heard of,
right? I don't know all that
yeah.
much about Synopsys either, but Synopsys I had heard of, and I'm like, oh right, they do like some chip design and they write software for that. Cadence is the exact same business, and they're about the same size companies. They're they're both very, very large and both very, very well respected.
Look, they're big enough to have the clipped out picture with the fake background of their headquarters that doesn't show all the neighboring buildings. That's the defining characteristic of this kind of silicon semiconductor company.
Right.
Is they have a real nice sunset. The building has the sun reflecting on it.
Yeah.
And they don't show any of the neighbor buildings that are probably bigger or just right up next to it or whatever.
Yeah.
Because we're really packed in here on the peninsula.
Yeah. You could tell it was probably Santa Clara. Like just from the
yeah,
just from
100%. It's somewhere between somewhere down on the wide part where 101 and 280 are far apart.
Yeah,
exactly.
Kind of right in that little nook right there. Yeah,
the triangle. Yeah.
What was funny is I got to ride around with Ian in the Bay Area about a year and a half ago or so, and we went and we interviewed a whole bunch of different CEOs at a bunch of different AI startups and silicon startups and things like that, and I was the driver. I'm the one who got the car, and
hold on. So Ian convinced you to chauffeur him around, is
yes,
what I'm
he did.
hearing.
Yeah,
okay.
Ian paid me to.
He's very persuasive.
He is. Yeah, Ian paid me to fly to San Jose, to hold a camera for him and then drive him around, which was fantastic. So. Thank you, Ian. That and I have family in San Jose, so it's like I can't say no, and I got to spend a couple evenings with them, and that was fantastic. But no. So we're driving around to all these startups, and they're all within like a half mile of each other, like every damn one of them.
Oh yeah, yeah. It's like you could take your Lyft scooter and zoop around on those, no problem down there.
You really
except
could.
for there aren't any down there because there's not enough people that are walking. Everybody has cars, so here we are.
Yeah, and it was really funny because we met with one particular vendor. I won't name anyone because I don't know anything like that. But we met with one particular vendor, and I got to meet one really, really cool person that I've looked up to for a long time. And he wasn't even part of the interview. He just walked in the room, and we started shooting the shit for like an hour and a half. And it's like, that was really freaking cool. They own a building that is also owned by like an HVAC company that I've known. Johnson Controls, I believe, owns part of that building. Also, what was the solar EV car startup that's down there? Like the real streamlined teardrop shaped.
Oh, there's
EV
a bunch
car.
of them. They came out. There's a Stanford car lab that spun out like 3 or 4 of those.
Yeah.
But it's like a 2-seater, right?
Yeah,
it's like the recumbent bike of electric cars.
Yeah. So they were there in the parking lot as well.
Okay.
And then it's like, all right, well, we're on to the next person. And then it's like, okay, well, where do I go? And so we typed in the address, and it's like, destination in 0.14 miles. And it's like, oh.
You could have just walked between the buildings to get
there,
across.
Ian. What the heck am I doing here?
Yeah. There you go. It's so I've lived here for 25 years now. It still is weird because you'll bump into some company that you've never heard of before, and they're like, oh yeah, we do networking interconnects, and it turns out that they ship $100 million of networking interconnects every month or something ridiculous.
Right.
And they're like in every commercial switch that's made and shipped or you'll meet somebody that's like, oh, what do you do? Well, you wouldn't probably understand. I'm like, well, try me. You might have luck. And they're like, oh, well, we're doing 800 gigabit per second networking.
Yeah.
For data center stuff. I'm like, oh yeah, that sounds really cool. What are you blah blah blah? And then but you never know. Like
right.
The other day I was talking to one of my daughter's friends' parents, and he was like, oh, I try not to ask people where I work because it's usually oh, I work in the sales department at Salesforce or something.
Yeah.
And this guy, I did the thing, and I looked at his hands, and I was like, oh, he uses his hands for work.
Yeah.
And I asked him what he did, and he was a machinist at Google's Moonshot at Google X, the Moonshot place.
Yeah.
So he's in building prototypes and like building custom hardware and all that. And he does everything from like, old school hand lathing and milling to like using the CNC machines. And like, he's like, on fun days, we get to 3D print something and then we take it out and do sand casting with it because we need some sort of screwy shaped part that's the only way to make it, turns out.
We need an aluminum cast model of this thing that they're cooking up. Right.
Yeah. But so it's really, it's like no place else I've ever lived, but it's also you drive down 101 and you see like billboards for the stupidest stuff on earth.
Yeah.
And it's,
the billboards along 101 are so hilarious because anywhere else in the country, they would make absolutely no sense.
Oh yeah. like the one that I see all the time right now that cracks me up is this company called Post Hog. That's post, P-O-S-T-H-O-G.
H-O-G. Okay, just as I heard it. Okay.
I'm going to ask you what kind of business you think this is, and I guarantee you're not going to get it right unless you already know.
Post hog sounds like...
Yeah. What does it sound like, Jeff?
That sounds like a bulk email delivery service for marketing.
Oh, see, now that's a good guess. I saw it and I thought it was a place you should post your hog for, sharing purposes.
Right.
People are into that, I guess. I don't know. I'm too old to know about that. No, it's neither of those. It's a data analytics company of some kind. It's like hey, we'll tell you when your services are tipping over. If you want a leaderboard for your sales, if you want a leaderboard for your new hardware sales business, Post Hog. You can post Hog and you'll get everything you need to know right there. So there you go.
So data analytics. Okay.
Data analytics is you.
I've run an ad on my channel once for Pork Bun, which is a DNS registry.
Yep.
Yeah,
I'm familiar with Pork Bun.
Yep. I got them to approve a really, really funny ad for us.
Okay.
Where long story short, I have a history with DNS, with DNS registries, where when I was looking at starting my channel and looking at like, what's my channel name? What's my vibe? What's my company? What's whatever else? I went, I need a hook. I live in the Northwest. I want to do something, Northwest related. And I ended up settling on beer. And I went, okay, well, craft makes a real nice, amalgam of that. What about the rest? Well, computing. I want to do tech content. And so craft computing. Okay, cool. We've got a name. I looked up the registry. It was $12 for the domain. And I went,
that's good.
And I went, all right, cool. I like that. Do I want to spend $12 tonight? I think I'm going to sleep on it. I think I'm going to...
Oh, no.
I went to bed. No. I woke up in the morning. I felt great about the name. I got online to buy it. It was $3,500. Someone saw my search query and bought the domain and squatted on it for 5 years.
Wow, that is. Which registrar did you search in that they found that?
I don't remember. It was probably GoDaddy or something.
Yeah,
something
that
like that.
Sucks.
But someone saw my search query and squatted my domain. And in fact, one of my patrons ended up buying the domain for $3,000 for me. So I own the domain now. Yeah. Shout out to Yocto, who ended up years later purchasing craftcomputing.com. I own the .com domain. I ended up buying the .net domain for $12. And so I have the .net and I have a couple others. And then I will never make that mistake again of sleeping on a domain name.
Look, I'm going to go and tell you, Jeff, this is why I own Noodle Aficionado. Because one night I was having noodles with a friend and we were like, hey, we should do a noodle review website. And I was like, man, I love noodles. I could spend the rest of my life eating noodles. That sounds fantastic. Why would I not do that?
I'm on board with this idea.
Yeah. I feel like Content Town came out of that too. I was like, this is this really incredibly stupid domain. Of course I'm going to buy this.
I own notltt.store and it forwards to my store.
That's pretty good. That's pretty good. Well, I own generallyunemployable.com. That works for me.
I like that.
I'm willsmith.fun over on Bluesky.
I saw that one, yes.
Because I'm fun. I'm the fun Will Smith. I also own willsmith.actor. Mm-hmm. And because I have the DNS record set up right, I can just switch between them at will. So
Nice.
when I need to be willsmith.actor, I can be. But
That's awesome.
but yeah. You gotta just buy those domains, man. You gotta spend that $12. You can't hesitate.
I will never sleep on it again. But anyway,
No.
We did a skit of me starting up like a Bay Area startup company of hey, I was thinking about a new name for my blog and whatnot. I've got on like a mullet wig, and my other co-host Rhett walks in the door and like, hey, we got that meeting to get to, man. And on the clock behind me, it's 4:19.
Very good. Very good.
And so we went to the meeting and I missed buying the domain, and then years later, we fast forward and everything's like upgraded and everything else. I'm like wearing a suit and a tie and all that. And hey, you're not gonna make that mistake again by not buying a domain. No, I'm gonna get right on that. Like we're talking properly and everything. It was a great ad.
It's really funny. It's really funny. I just buy them recklessly and with casual disregard for their long-term usability, and sometimes it works out and most of the time it doesn't. So I still have a lot of regret that in 1994, when I learned what DNS registrations were, and I was like, oh, I could go to this network solutions website and buy a domain. Wow, they want $70 for willsmith.com. Why would I'm not going to spend, that's like 6 weeks worth of beer. That's right. I was $10 a weekend for beer back then. So I didn't buy it.
1997, I was still equating $1 with one Mountain Dew. So yeah,
no, that was a ton of money back then. So anyway, here we are.
We live, we learn.
Yeah.
We didn't know what was going on back then.
So, just to loop it all back around to Intel, the vibe check on Lip Booth seems pretty good. People seem generally like. I'm on the. I think Intel's in a good spot if they actually ship 18A on time.
I think so. Yeah. No, that's my feeling as well. It has to ship on time because the clock is a ticking for Intel. But I
mean, they can soft launch in the fall, in the winter, and it just needs to be. They need to have something out there. There needs to be some Panther Lake in the world.
Right. And not only for their own products, but again, there's been talk that they're trying to expand their fab services out to other companies, and start directly competing with TSMC. And looping this back around to our conversation at the top of the hour of all the tariff talks and everything else, with the administration looking at placing 30% tariffs on anything TSMC imported from Taiwan. Having a domestic fab, that could certainly play to the advantage of AMD, Nvidia, Samsung, etc. When it comes to imports in the US.
What's the I should know this, but what's TSMC Arizona? Is it a 4-nanometer fab?
Yes.
And will eventually go to 2, right?
Yeah. They are. I believe 4 right now, stretching for 2.
Okay. But so we have. It's basically the only advanced fab in the U.S. Right now until 18A comes online.
Right.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, because Intel themselves in Hillsboro is still at 7. And again, they're trying to they skipped 20 and they're trying to go straight to 18 because they missed the deadline for 20. And that is, I believe, truly what's put Intel into the bind that they're in right now. Is
missing 20?
Is missing 20.
Yeah. I mean, it's the same problem as always, though. It's the, hey, what's actually good for the market that your company works in versus what the market thinks is good for your company that it's in.
Right.
And I don't know. We'll see. Only time. I think this is one where only time will tell. And unfortunately, this building fabs is not a good news on a quarter by quarter business. It's something
building
like 700...
fabs is 7 years in the future. This is going to be good for this company.
Yeah. And from the time they break ground, if you get it done in 2 years, you've done amazing. It's like, So anyway, it's a tough biz.
Yeah. Intel has some really expensive holes in the ground in Ohio and Ireland right now. That might eventually bear fruit, but,
Well, I hope they bear CPUs, not fruit. I mean, I could plant a fruit tree in my backyard, and that'll be good in 7 or 8 years. But I
That's
can't
true.
plant a
That's true.
fab.
Yeah.
Now, let me. You play games, Jeff? Right?
Oh, of course.
I have a game pitch I've been working on, and I want to get your take on it because
Sure.
I think you're the target audience here.
Yeah, let's do it.
I have a couple of friends who work in fabs, and I get fab stories from them. I'm sure you have the same. You find out like the nuts and bolts of working in a fab, and like, what it's like to deal with hydrofluoric acid that's cryogenically cool on the day to day. It's bad, just to be clear.
I live about 45 minutes from the Intel main campus in Hillsboro, and so I have friends who worked at the fabs. I dabble.
So I think. Imagine if you were making a game that was like a fab sim game where you lay out the fab, you buy the machines, you have to make the budget work. I think that there's sim game vibes.
A management sim for silicon production.
For silicon production, because it's a nightmare.
Yeah.
Like getting the rates on the machine, like the downtime, the machines are so phenomenally expensive that having downtime on the machines is going to bankrupt you. So you have to optimize everything. And then you have to deal with like the EPA coming and knocking on the door occasionally.
Yeah.
You know, your solar cells go down, your hydro costs go up, whatever. Your water recycler breaks. This is a banger.
Ian and I, back in 2021, December of 2021, 21? No, December 21. Okay. We got a tour of the Intel fabs, full bunny suits, full cameras. We got to walk through the Intel fabs.
And I've never been inside a fab. That's rad.
It was the coolest thing ever. And we were told specifically where we could take pictures, what angle we could take the pictures at, what could be in the picture, what focal length we could be at, who could be in the background of the pictures, and every picture that we took, we did get approval for one video, and it's like 12 seconds, and it's on Ian's shorts, where he goes and like rubs against an EUV machine. It's hilarious. But we have aspects of that trip that are still NDA'd. That we got to see an EUV machine that was half assembled. So it was being put together, and we got to walk down the aisle that it was on. And you're seeing 40 different tubes of noble gases, of like
different
of all your different things to work as solvents and acids and gases and inoculants and whatnot inside the fab. And I'm like, yeah, that's that, and we're going down that line, and we're like, can we take a picture? And he's like, no.
Yeah, God,
no. So yeah, no, you're talking about like turning that into like a simulation manager kind of thing.
Yeah.
And I'm
You'd
going,
play that, right?
Dude, there is so much material there. The really fun part is the company that makes the EUV machines and the nondescript brick building like a half mile away from Intel's campus that is worth almost as much as Intel, but you'd never know it.
Yeah, and they sell like 6 of those machines a year probably, right?
Right.
On a good year, on a huge year.
Yeah.
Well,
and they're like a $7 billion company.
And like, so the other thing is that there's all this logistics about it. Like, how do you get some of those machines are like 7 tons and 50 feet long, and they have to go in one piece. So you have to figure out like, how do you get that into the clean area? Right. And then, you can put it on the air skids or whatever, but it still is a 7 tons of mass and inertia that you have to deal with. So yeah, anyway.
Ian chimes in the chat, and he goes, yeah, it was 2021. And he goes, do you remember the 1.2 meter precise machined aluminum bubble that was so smooth and shiny?
Yeah.
Massive, perfectly smooth, perfectly round, ungodly mirror finished bubble that I can't even tell you what it does, because that's how cool it is.
I was supposed to go see one of the mirrors for the big telescope that's in Chile, that the EU built a few years ago, when they were casting it in the casting lab at it's in Tucson. It's in the university at Tucson.
Okay.
And they it's like I think it was 12 or 18 mirrors in that telescope, and they invited us down to come do a tested video on the last one, and I got the flu right at, like, I woke up the morning I was supposed to go get on the plane to go down there, and I never got to go see the cast get to go see him do it. But the folks that I know that went to that and saw the mirrors were like, it was just, you couldn't see it. Like, it's so shiny and reflective that you can't see where the surface is and where the reflection begins. And it's just, you don't understand what optical precision and what a really smooth surface looks like, because your brain and your eyes can't cope with it.
Yeah.
So anyway,
the really fun part about our fab tour was we're walking by and there's some 200 mil wafers coming off the line, and they're being automatically microscope examined by this machine. And so it's sliding a wafer into like the microscope, and then there's a technician who on a giant monitor right there is looking over, you know, the silicon casting and things like that. And Ian walks over, he starts counting, and he leans over to me and he goes, "Do you know what that is?" And I went, "Is it what I think it is?" And he goes, "Yeah, that's Sapphire Rapids." In 2021, like 2 years before they released it.
Oh, that's amazing.
And he goes, "Yeah, that's SPR."
That's amazing. Holy cow.
We held up the entire tour to stand there for like 2 minutes going like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, just counting the rows.
You got to practice your estimation on a circular, so that's the flea market. They have all these dies and you get to play the game. Is this raw? Is this RAM? Is this flash memory? What are on these wafers? It's almost always flash, but sometimes you find one that's like some little embedded ASIC or something like that. Yeah. That sounds amazing. That sounds so much fun. I would love to do the bunny suit tour.
It was such a cool tour.
Yeah. We got invited to go to a car factory one time, and I was shocked at the number of places. The number of places are like, "Oh yeah, you can't take a picture in this drive." Like it's the level of knowledge about what's the proprietary stuff that they don't want showing up in a picture in a video or something like that was really surprising to me. I didn't expect that at all. And I can only imagine what a nightmare it is inside a fab or something where they're actually doing cutting edge stuff versus jamming doors on cars.
Right. You know, that they don't want to know exactly the length of your weld on a particular seam, but at Intel, they have a fully automated series of, we'll call them gantries, but think about like all the robots in Star Wars that are doing all like the little mouse droids and whatnot that are doing all the little automated tasks. They had mouse droids that are, 2 foot by 2 foot cubes that are ran along ceiling tracks, and they move at like 30 miles an hour. And there's hundreds of them moving at any point in time. And
isn't this an IBM thing, the wafer carriers?
Yeah, they're wafer carriers. And and so but you could see them moving all along the ceiling of this building at any given time, and one getting out of the way for 3 to pass by, and then getting back on the track and shooting by. And then every single machine down a row, you'd see 20 of them with arms coming down to drop them into their various positions that they needed to be in, the various machines that had the next step in the process of creating these wafers. And then when a carrier was full, an arm would come down and grab it again, pull it up freaking 15, 20 feet in the air and put it back on this track, and it'd shoot off at 30 miles an hour to the next thing.
So packetized logistic spots is what you're saying.
Right,
is what we I'll have to put this in the game design doc. That sounds good.
I would totally play that.
It's a weird game, right?
It's a very niche game. I don't know if you're going to get the audience you want out of it, but I like it.
Like, I'm sure that the audience for that game will have a lot of feelings about how well the game represents the thing that they care about, and anyway.
The whole game needs to be in a sepia tone, because that's what living in a fab is it's a permanent yellow cast.
Oh, because it's all like yellow cast.
It's all yellow cast because it's non-UV. Yeah. Right.
Oh boy, I didn't think about that.
Yeah.
Well, that'll save some money. We can just do a lot less art, right?
Right. Yeah, your color design just got simplified like that.
Well, but you need something to look nice. We might cheat a little bit on that. We'll figure that out. That's a future problem to solve.
Yeah.
But But yeah, no, it's one I've been kicking around for a little bit. It's just, I think it's a stupid idea. I got to figure out how cheap I can make it, because I think it's like you'll sell 10,000 copies of this, and those people will be really excited about it.
Right.
Anyway, what else we got?
We've got a couple other ones. I mean, we've been riding the AI train for a while, so
we love AI here. It's our favorite.
We love AI. We can cover the Facebook. Speaking of more copyright and theft of intellectual property for the gain of an AI training algorithm, a judge is allowing the AI copyright lawsuit against Meta, Facebook, to go forward. With the 8 terabytes of downloaded works that have been added to their training algorithm that someone BitTorrented on Meta's network to add to said training algorithm.
That's just sloppy. Come on, guys. If you're going to steal stuff, be casual. Do it at home.
Do it at home.
You know?
Right.
Yeah. Go home, then take a hard drive, bring it back in. I mean, seems good. Like, these people deserve... they dismissed part of it, right? Because some of it was that they were challenging using a fraud act,
right?
Data Access and Fraud Act that seemed a little iffy. I'm not a lawyer, but
yeah.
But the hey, we stripped out there's some intentionality to we removed the copyright management information that's built into all these ebooks that they downloaded.
Correct.
So that it didn't look like we were stealing copyrighted information, when it's very clearly copyrighted books that are currently in print, and people are, What
I would say is, rather than giving Meta the benefit of the doubt, let's treat them like they treated one of the first MP3 cases, which was actually in Eugene, Oregon. It is actually local to me at the time. A University of Oregon student used the University of Oregon internet in his dorm room to get onto... It wasn't Napster, but it was like one of the Napster adjacents. Might have been Kazaa, might have been something like that.
LimeWire, one of those.
LimeWire, yeah. It was one of the very early ones, because this is like 99, maybe 2000. And downloaded a whole bunch of MP3s and was actively sharing all the MP3s. And the MPAA and various organizations came after him and sued him for all he was worth, and sued him for each individual file as an infringement at $250,000. And so he had like a $70 million judgment against him or something like that. And I went, well, they do threaten in the FBI warnings at the start of movies, or they used to on VHS, copyright infringement is real and we can charge you $250,000 per incident. Let's take 8 terabytes of ebooks and divide that by, 10 megs per ebook, and charge them $250,000 per infringement.
Ebooks are like a half a meg. That is so many ebooks.
Even the benefit of the doubt at 10 megs, like fully illustrated, cover art, Dungeons and Dragons kind of stuff. Yeah. Like let's just go 10 megs per. I did the calculation on the infringement. It's something like $9.5 trillion.
Yeah. I mean, I think about all the people that the RIAA went after and destroyed their lives because their kid logged onto Napster and downloaded 5 songs, right? And you get it one way or the other. You don't get it both ways. So either downloading stuff from the internet isn't copyright infringement for everybody, and we're all sailing the high seas for the rest of our lives, or Meta and OpenAI and Anthropic and all the different AI companies have to follow the same rules that the rest of us have. And for me, it really does boil down to the generative work feels like copyright infringement.
Yeah.
And the analysis work feels like it's a derivative work that adds value, in the same way that, like, Google keeping a copy of the web for search indexing purposes on its own servers it provides used to provide maybe more of a value than it does these days, but is a valuable use, is a valuable reason that they should be able to violate copyright, right? Because technically, Google keeping their own shadow copy of the web for search index purposes is a violation of copyright.
Absolutely is.
But anyway, I don't know. Call me old-fashioned. I'm glad that the lawsuits are continuing on this. The real answer is that we're not going to know what the legal outcome of this is for 10 years. And in 10 years, we may not even have laws anymore. So who knows? It's all, who's going to be the most corrupt? I bet it's Meta.
Yeah. The nice thing is we don't even have to vote anymore. I mean, that's fantastic.
Well, I mean, I'm just glad we don't have to make any of those difficult decisions.
Yeah. I'm glad our tech oligarchs are making all the tough decisions for us.
Yeah, I'm sure they're the best and brightest. It's going to be great.
Yeah, it's going to be great.
I need another beer if we're going to keep on this track.
The nice thing about the White House becoming a Tesla dealership is, and that attacks on Tesla dealerships are now terrorist acts, is that all of a sudden January 6th people are guilty of terrorism instead of just vacationers. So, like, if you want to go full circle with it, like, it worked out in the end.
They all got nice pardons. They're just good patriots.
That's right.
Yeah. Keeping it light. We're keeping it light here.
We're keeping it light. I'm going to pour the rest of my beer here.
Yeah, that's probably the right choice. Yeah, I don't know. I think what's going to end up happening is we're going to have a bunch of different cases. It's the same reason that the fair use stuff, that the MPAA and the RIA never challenged the DVD decryption stuff in court, because they didn't want to establish a precedent on fair use.
Correct.
Now, the difference here is that the people who are the authors of these books don't give a shit, and they absolutely want to challenge. They want to establish whether there's a precedent for this.
Yeah.
And so we're going to see a lot of challenges from artists and from writers and from all the people that are affected. And then there's going to be, this stuff will percolate up through the appeals courts over 5 or 10 years, and eventually we'll get to the Supreme Court. And at that point, we'll know, based on the level of corruption we have on the Supreme Court, how it's going to go. Right? It's like, how many RVs does Clarence Thomas need? We'll find out. Who? Just take a Kermit the Frog memed there, Jeff.
You got it.
Yeah.
Yeah, the interesting thing about a lot of the large corporations not fighting a lot of fair use allegations is they don't want to lose and it become precedent that it's not copyright infringement. That's why Nintendo has never fully gone after individual ROM downloaders when it comes to that kind of thing. They go after the distributors of them, because the distributors are totally liable for the damage that they cause. However, there is actual legal precedent when it comes to downloading like MP3s and ebooks and things like that, of downloading a thing off the internet, off the free and open internet, is not inherently a crime. Especially if you didn't necessarily know that the thing you downloading was obtained illegitimately. There are some legal precedents.
I don't know that anybody's ever pulled that one in court and had it work out well for them.
I don't think it. But I believe, like, dating back again to like the early 2000s, late 90s kind of court system, was if there's a website that simply says download your music for free, and you as a user reached that via Google search or Alta Vista, and you click on an MP3 of Linkin Park and you download that MP3, you as the end user are not necessarily under the understanding that what you downloaded is illegitimate. That was the
mp3.com rule.
Exactly.
mp3.com.
Yeah.
mp3.com was a CNET owned website that was a MP3 search engine.
Yeah.
And they got sued into non-existence over a relatively short period of time.
Right.
But yeah, you're right. The people who used mp3.com did not face legal consequences, because it was on the, I think that's why actually all the DVDs ended up with, hey, it's illegal to download this movie at the start of the movie. Right. But the pirates just strip that part out and then you never see it. So it's still probably okay from that standpoint.
Exactly. And so if you're Nintendo, do you really want to challenge individual downloaders of, hey, you downloaded a copy of Breath of the Wild or whatever else, and say you knew that was illegal? You knew. Well, no, I literally just Google searched play Breath of the Wild and this link came up and I downloaded the game. Like, how was I supposed to know that wasn't okay?
When we're talking about the labels and the movie studios not going after fair use infringement, we're talking about them not challenging the decryption stuff specifically.
Yes,
they intentionally did not challenge is it okay to decrypt a DVD or a copy protected CD, because they did not want to establish precedent that it was okay. They wanted it to be nebulous.
Yeah.
And then a few years ago, the Library of Congress just said, hey man, you can bypass encryption for archival purposes. If you bought a disc, you can do whatever you want with it. That's cool.
Yep.
And the whole thing stopped mattering. But there was like a good 15 years of ambiguity there where it was unclear if my DVD CCA t-shirt that I bought from Ars Technica or whatever in 2003 was actually illegal or not.
Right.
And just owning the code that bypassed the CCA stuff. So
yeah. I mean,
Anyway.
I mean, that has so many far-reaching things with it as well. I had a point.
Because the DMCA made all that stuff illegal, right? That's the thing. DVD made bypassing encryption for copyright infringement purposes a super bad law to break. Technical term there.
In some circumstances, but there's also allowances for breaking copyright and encryption and things like that. So like when it comes to software, if you had a hardware bound license key, and the software itself requires that license key, but that company went out of business or no longer offers the license key for sale, and you own a legitimate copy of this, you can break that license key to keep using your software that you're legitimately allowed to own.
But that's one of those Library of Congress exceptions. Is again, like this is the weird nebulous place. None of these are laws. The fair use doctrine was based on the Betamax case in 1980, early 80s.
Yeah,
and like there's never been like it's just been courts and the Library of Congress and anyway, it's yeah. It's all exhausting. It's all exhausting, Jeff.
Yes, it is.
So yeah, keep suing the AI people. That's the takeaway. I think if you own stuff and they've stolen from you, I think Lisa Frank should go after them too. Like everybody should be suing all the people scraping and stealing.
Yeah, I agree.
Call me old fashioned.
Well, you are older than me, so.
That's true. Well, I mean, I'm older than most people at this point, it turns out. Feel it more every single day.
Yeah.
Just call me Grampy Will.
Yeah.
But no, it's like, look, this is a time, it feels like a lack of hope time, right?
Yeah.
It feels like the nadir of I'm turned 50 this year, and it just feels like we knew better. We did pretty good once, and we should have known better the second time, and we didn't. And as a result, everything's going to get worse. And I mean, if we sit back and doom scroll and get depressed all the time, it's going to be like that. But at the same time, there's a lot of good that individual people can do, even in otherwise troubled times. So, you know, don't sitting and scrolling is not helping anyone. Is my TLDR here. So
yeah. Yep. It's going to be an interesting couple years, to say the least.
Interesting is. Yeah.
Could I just be done living in interesting times? I just want to live in normal times.
Boring, tedious, just plain old fashioned, nothing complicated.
Yeah.
I mean, look, I'm not old enough that I grew up hiding under desks for nuclear missile drills. I lived in a tornado part of the country, so we had tornado drills and stuff like that. But like, there's a big difference between, hey, a small part of your town is going to get wiped out, and it could be fine, or it could be the end of all life on the planet. We'll find out in 18 minutes or so.
Right.
And I feel like we had a really nice 20-year period there when stuff was reasonably chill, and then we're right back at it again.
Yeah. So. I feel like I was coming into adulthood late 90s, early 2000s. I'm about 10 years younger than you.
Okay.
And so I kind of felt a little bit of that, 95 through 05, with the exception of 9/11 and the .com bomb. If you ignore those things.
Yeah, but those were big. 9/11 was bad.
Right.
Controversial takes. The aftermath of 9/11 was probably worse than 9/11 in retrospect. Now we know.
Agreed. Fully agreed.
The .com bomb was really impactful for a relatively small number of people, right? The 2007-2008 crash was much more impactful for people across the country in the US at least.
Yeah.
But
those were flickers in time compared to everything else that we're dealing with today.
Yeah, that's exactly it.
Yeah.
And also, and there's the looming climate stuff, which is, it's not going to get better for the next 3 years from our standpoint. 3.5 years. So
what are you talking about? Everything's fine. Everything's fine. Just ignore
That's
it.
true. I mean, look. Yeah, yeah. Anyway, we're doing great here.
We're doing great.
Everything's fantastic. I'm gonna go have a donut and get some $13 eggs and then call it a day. What kind of cake can you make without eggs? Cheesecake, I guess. I don't know.
Is cheesecake without eggs? I don't remember. Yeah, it's cream cheese and.
I think there's eggs.
Is there egg in cheesecake? I don't remember.
I can look up hold on, let me open paprika. I'll tell you. I have my cheesecake recipes right here.
Cool.
I keep it on top of the pile just in case I need a cheesecake.
Excellent. Everyone could always use an emergency cheesecake.
Look, I have a lemon tree in the backyard. I make a lemon cheesecake that's pretty good.
Nice.
I didn't put it in paprika. It's just in my phone in the notes.
I've got 3 apple trees in my backyard, and there's nothing I despise on this planet worse than those 3 apple trees because they produce terrible apples.
Oh yeah. See, we always had crab apple trees.
Yeah.
And we had horses, and the horses would eat they'd go for one of them, and then they'd spit out most of it because they'd be like, "No, this apple sucks, man. Get me something good."
Right.
Let's see. My cheesecake recipe, 2 eggs.
Okay. Yeah. See.
Yeah.
That added $2 to your cheesecake right there.
Yeah, that's a $30 cheesecake now. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Ew, that hurts to hear.
Yeah, it's not great.
Yeah.
I should just have chickens. That's the takeaway. Get ducks. Duck eggs are bigger. They're delicious.
Cosworth in the chat. He's one of the main users on my Discord server. He's got ducks and chickens. So if you need any duck eggs, he's the guy to know.
One of my neighbors has ducks, and she just went through the whole thing where she screened in her backyard over the top so that she wouldn't get wild birds in there because she's trying to keep them safe from that apocalypse.
Yeah.
And when she goes out of town, occasionally we get duck eggs. If we she's like, "Hey, will you go check with the ducks every once in a while and put food out?" And I'm like, "Yeah." And she's like, "You have all the eggs you want?" We're like, "Hell yeah, we're gonna get some duck eggs."
Nice.
Yeah, duck eggs.
$20 in duck eggs. All right.
Yeah, that's like 3 duck eggs.
My sister-in-law one time, her daughter had some medical issues for a while, and at one point they thought she was allergic to chicken eggs. And so the doctor said, well, if she really likes eggs, or if you need to cook or something like that, there are alternatives. Usually people who are allergic to chicken eggs aren't allergic to duck eggs. And so maybe you can go look for some duck eggs. And so she went, okay. And so she went into a Chinese market, and she was asking where the duck eggs were. And the lady told her, they're in the back, go. So she found the duck eggs, came forward. She got to the checkout, and the lady scanning her out looked at the eggs, looked at this very white woman standing in front of her, looks back down at the eggs and go, duck egg. And she went, no, I know, I'm looking for duck eggs. And she goes, no, alive.
Oh, she bought the fertilized duck
She bought
eggs.
the fertilized duck eggs.
Whoopsie. So you got to go to the bougie supermarket to get the unfertilized duck
exactly.
eggs.
She's
that's
like,
the secret.
no, duck inside still.
Yeah, it's a future duck, not a now duck. Oh man, that's a bad surprise. You don't want to scramble.
At least she told her. At least she told her before she got him home.
Look, there's a series of horrible. If you get one of those, have you ever seen those things on TikTok where you put the egg in, you spin it so it scrambles it in the shell, and you get the golden egg?
I haven't done that. No.
I've never. I know it seems like a bad idea. I've never bought that, but you could do. Oh God, yeah, this is bad. Okay. I thought you were gonna go with ostrich eggs there, and she got the mallet and the whole thing,
and she's going to town,
just wailing on the ostrich egg.
But no, she came home and she told that story to all of us. She's like, no, duck, and she's like, yeah, I know, duck eggs, and it's like, no, duck, quack, inside, duck.
It's really good. Oh man. Yeah, that's funny. I never accidentally bought. I think the West Coast thing that we didn't do when I was a kid, but in first grade they almost always get, or maybe kindergarten, they always get chicken. They hatch chickens in the kindergarten classrooms toward the end of the year in the spring. Okay. And we had we got to the end of the year and the chicks are becoming chickens, and the teacher's like, hey, who wants some chickens? And I immediately responded to the email.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, hell yeah, I want chickens.
I'll take
and my
a chicken
wife
home.
immediately responded to me responding to the email, and she's like, "We absolutely under no circumstances want chickens. Thank you though." So no chickens for me, sadly.
Yeah.
But I would take a duck egg right now. I would go for a duck egg all day long.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well, it is half hour past 8 o'clock. So we have well and fully done the 2-hour live stream that we promised everyone.
This is a podcast. Can you do a podcast in less than 2 hours? I don't know. Maybe.
We tried. So this is episode 373 of my podcast. I've been doing this 7.5 years now. We've got a good run. We started as a 1-hour podcast, and I had never done podcasting before. And so we struggled to fill the first couple hours when we did it. I think by episode 30, we had fully established, like, no, we need to talk for 2. And it's been a 2-hour show since then. And occasionally we'll do 2.5. And in fact, usually when I have guests on, it'll hit 3 because I'm going to talk to you people all that often. And so it's great to just kind of go.
It's we went when I was with Tested, we went to America's Test Kitchen, because one of the nice things about working with Tested and having Adam on the masthead was that when you called people, they picked up the phone and were really excited to talk to you, because they were like, "Oh yeah, we love that. Yeah, you guys are great. We love this. I love your YouTube channel. We'd love to have you come." So we went to like nuclear reactors and I love America's Test Kitchen. I learned to cook with America's Test Kitchen. So we went to America's Test Kitchen.
I remember your guys' whole series on Test Kitchen that you guys ran. Yeah.
It was fabulous. It was really neat.
Yeah.
We learned a lot. But like Chris Kimball was giving us the tour, and I don't think we recorded this. I think this was just off camera. He was just showing us around, and he looks at me and he's like, "I know why you do the podcast, man." I was like, "What?" He's like, "Yeah, I know why you do it. It's so you can talk to people that you think are interesting." And I was like, "You're absolutely right. That is exactly why we do. That is why you do a podcast, so you can have interesting conversations with people who are fun." So. Shout out to Chris Kimball. He early thought leader on the you can have conversations with people that are fun. We do the Tech Pod, which I do every Sunday.
Yeah.
We started out as like, we're going to do 45 minutes and we're going to do it in Brad's living room. And so I had this portable setup that I used for other stuff, and I would drive over to his house, and Saturday mornings we'd record. And we started it in September of 2019. And so we did like 20 episodes, maybe 15 episodes, and then got the don't leave your house for a year and a half note.
Right.
And had to learn how to do remotes and all that.
Yeah.
But we've done, I feel like sometimes we go longer. Like we had Rob Zachney from Remap Radio and Shift F1 and A More Civilized Age on to talk about Star Wars technology a few weeks ago.
Oh, nice.
And we went a little bit long on that, but usually we're like an hour. But it's like single topic. There's not a lot of there's not opportunity to ramble, and the tangents are relatively well controlled. And also, we usually record it at 7 o'clock in the morning, so there's no beers, which I think speeds the process a little.
Beers
bit.
help.
Beers help extend. Yeah, it's a good way to stretch.
Yes.
But if Ian is a miserable bastard and doesn't find anyone fun, then you should do right wing talk radio. You'll be perfect at that. Just get real into muscle supplements. And
just ask all the questions.
Yeah, you're just asking questions, man. I don't know. Yeah, that's the reason to be cheerful and have fun.
That's right.
It's because if you don't, you turn it into Joe Rogan.
Yeah. No, I started this one in 2017, about 4 or 5 months after I started craft computing. I'm like, I want to do a podcast. I think that'd be fun and my original goal for it was to be kind of like a radio show where it's just 2 people talking about the subjects at hand and having an honest conversation about them. And that's it. We do decent numbers. It's nothing extraordinary, but I'll do 2,000, 2,500 in a live stream. And then usually nowadays between 5 and 10,000 on the VODs, and that's a solid.
Those are
podcast.
good numbers,
right?
That is not, that is like, well, I mean, and the thing is, if it works right, if you do it well and you get good at it, then you have a thing where when people are riding to work and listening in their car or whatever, then they feel like they're in the room. You get that, hey, I'm sitting in the room having a cool conversation that I may not get to have with my like day-to-day friends and coworkers and loved ones. Like I love my wife. We get along great. We're not going to sit and talk about the new CEO of Intel
and the ethics of AI generation.
Yeah, we might talk about the ethics of AI generation, but like, it's unusual for us to talk about this kind of stuff, and a lot of people don't have that outlet. So I love a podcast. I'm a big fan.
Yeah,
I've been doing it for a long time.
Yeah. So like I said, this is episode 373. We've been doing it for a while now, and it's working out. So it's all right.
That's awesome, man.
So. Well, thank you. I really appreciate you being on. This was fun.
It's been a blast.
This was
really good.
Yeah,
really good. It's always good to catch up. Jeff, it's a real testament to how much I like you that I'm willing to come here despite your pro motion smoothing stance.
There it is. There it is.
I have long stood up. It's one of my deepest, most tightest held feelings is that motion smoothing is literally the work of the devil. So the fact that I'm here is a testament to what an affable, charming host you are, more than anything else.
So I was a guest on the Full Nerd. I went down to San Fran and was in. We
call it Frisco usually.
I was in the city. There, that's how you know I really know where it's at.
Frisco.
I was in the city, and I was on with Adam, and Adam goes, "Hey, since you're here, do you want to join the podcast?" And I went, "That'd be fantastic." And so he goes, "Yeah, we've got so and so." Gosh, I don't remember what's.
Was it Brad Charkis?
It wasn't Brad. It was the girl. It was
Elena.
Yeah. It was Elaine, and then he goes, "Oh, and I think Will might join us too." And I went, "Will's gonna be on? That's freaking awesome!" And because I know you, I've followed you, like I said, for years, and then I'm on a podcast with Will, and I think at the end of the show we said, "What's your hot take?" And I said, "Motion smoothing on TV is not that bad."
Oh God. Oh, that's the worst. Adam's been making me drink these liquid death flavored waters that taste like the melted ice after you drink a soda in a cup.
Yeah.
And this is worse than that. This like the worst taste in my mouth than that. Terrible.
To be fair, I have 3 children, and Bluey streams to my main TV 18 hours a day.
That sounds fabulous. I love Bluey.
Bluey's amazing.
I'm not even wearing my Bluey. I have a Here Come the Grannies shirt that I wear completely unironically because Bluey rips. Bluey's super good.
I have a Magic Claw shirt.
Okay, that's perfect.
Yeah. It's the Claw has no children. His days are free and free and free and easy, I think is what it says.
Free and easy. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so I have a Magic Claw shirt. It's great. But 90% of what we watch on our main TV is animation, whether it's Bluey, whether it's
making this worse,
Moana, whether it's whatever else,
deeper.
And we just kind of leave it on because even the shows that I watch out in my living room, unless it's sports, which also benefits from motion smoothing.
I was gonna say tennis is okay with motion smoothing on. That's the one exception to the rule.
I will say basketball is not good. I don't like motion smoothing on basketball. Motion smoothing on football though is usually pretty good because it's usually one pan action instead of back and forth like basketball is.
I don't know, man. The panning is rough. But it's the behind the back tennis shot is okay.
Okay,
that's the one that I'm not completely averse.
See, you're coming around. You're coming around to it.
No, in no way. Look. The last time I went to Tennessee and stayed with some friends, I got a call like 3 days after we left from one of them. It was like, "What the hell did you do with my TV?" And
it looks choppy as hell now.
I fixed it for you. I made it better.
You will thank me in the long run.
Yeah, you're just get real. This is the way it's supposed to. This is the way it's meant to be played.
Yeah. I don't mind it on most content. On some, it's pretty jarring.
How do you feel about fake frames then? Are you pro fake frames? Like unabashedly pro?
Because
these are the same thing.
It is the same thing. It is the same thing. I am not 100% unabashedly so fake frames, but at the same time, if you can take my 80 FPS in Cyberpunk and make it 240, and the graphical anomalies are not such that are jarring, like I have to pixel peep to find them. I'm not pixel peeping when I'm playing that game, so what do I care?
Yeah,
it's kind of my opinion.
The Star Wars Outlaws and Indiana Jones kind of sold me on it, right? Because they were both like reasonably performant on a 4090, but when you get 3 extra frames every frame, it turns out feels real nice.
When you can enable, like Cyberpunk and Indiana especially, the full path tracing where the light is actually genuinely interacting with the objects that it hits, and you can see colors reflecting into surfaces from other objects and things like that. Like when you really start analyzing the detail of the scene, and it's still running at 60 to 80 FPS natively, if you can turn that to 240 for basically zero visual anomaly that happens on it, why not? Like, it looks great.
Yeah, and it's informed by data instead of just like just dividing 2 frames and splitting the difference, like motion smoothing.
Right.
It's a smart technology instead of a dumb one, is what I'm saying.
I mean, the implementation on a lot of TVs, I will give you, is not fantastic.
Yeah.
And so there is a lot to be said for it has a long way to go. Maybe NVIDIA starts integrating some Tegra tech into some TVs.
No, that TCL's not going to pay for that. That'd cost them 3 cents more per.
I know
per
it's not going to
TV.
pay. I know they're not going to pay for it, but
yeah. Oh.
But eventually the tech trickles down and it gets better, right? And the only way it gets better is if you start using it.
No. Some things don't deserve to get better. That's the thing. Don't feed the generative AI. Don't turn on motion smoothing. Use the good tech.
I like how you put both those in the same sentence as if they're the same.
It's like one is your TV lying to you, the other is your computer lying to you. It's the same exact thing. Oh, hey, this is a 60 frames per second broadcast. No, it's not. It's 30, and we're just going to make up a bunch of... Anyway.
We also say ESPN's a 1080p broadcast or a 4K broadcast. They're broadcasting at like 840p and upscaling.
Well, okay. Look, if you want to have this,
that's just fake pixels.
If you want to really talk about this, what's your bit rate at 4K on YouTube, right? Because it's not enough. It's nowhere near high.
Never enough.
No, they're like, oh yeah, here's 20 megabits. 20 megabits, not enough bit rate for 4K.
No, it's
I'm
not.
Sorry. Even with the H.265, AV1, whatever, you need more bits.
Yep.
Yeah. So.
Yep. I think the current 265 is 35 megabit for 4K on YouTube.
That's probably
at 30
okay.
FPS. Yeah.
And at 30?
At 30 FPS. Yeah.
What is this? Is it the 90s? Are we broadcasting at 30 frames a second again?
Let me tell you something about that. For the first 4 years on YouTube, I broadcast in either 1080 upscaled to 4K at 60 or 4K 60 native. I switched to 4K 30. No one has ever said a thing.
Really?
Not one comment ever in the last 5 years that I've been doing 4K 30. Not one.
Somebody just said something in the chat. I'm just saying. Is this stream 30 hertz? It seems Oh, well.
The stream's 30. The stream's 30.
Yeah. Yep. Too slow.
Yep.
Too slow. You need those webcams running at 60 frames a second. That's the secret. I one of my pet peeves is that the bit rates for online video are always Twitch, YouTube, RIP Mixer. Mixer had pretty good video bit rates back in the day.
Yeah.
Everything's too low.
Give me 1080 at 25 or 30 megabit and it's gorgeous compared to 4K at 35.
Yeah.
I will totally take a higher bitrate 1080p because you get more color information, you get less distortion, less artifacting than you do at higher resolutions because it's 4 times the data at 1/4 the bitrate.
Well, so one of the things that's interesting is Twitch started doing the thing where they let you pre-encode the lower bit rates.
Yeah.
So that like if you're watching on your phone or mobile, you're getting the same stream and there's no lag, which is the reason you do it if you're a streamer is that you get no lag for the people on non-computer platforms.
Yeah.
And the interesting thing is they give you a little bit more headroom on the 1080p stream as well as a result of doing that. So you end up with like a 9.5K 1080p stream, and then the others are smaller, kind of crappier bit rates under
720,
there. Yeah, exactly. And the result is really good. Like it looks much nicer. But also, man, it's 2025. Where's my AV1? Nobody. Right. It's just like, please. I have an Intel card sitting here ready to go into that machine so it can do the AV1. And here we are. Yeah. Anyway.
Yep. Yeah, I put one of my 5080s into the editing rig simply so I could encode AV1 and start uploading AV1 to YouTube now. So
yeah. It's the number one use for a 5080. It's the only reason anybody would want a 5080. Just
exactly right.
Yeah.
I mean, at $1,000, they're not bad, but I wouldn't spend $1,300 or $1,400 on one. So
no, it's the MSRP problem.
Yeah,
but we don't need to. That's just a
We talked about that the last 2 weeks. We're fine here.
I've talked about it so many times now. I can't do it again. But anyway,
this was so much fun. Thank you for joining.
This was great, Jeff. Thank you for having me.
We will definitely need to do this again.
Yeah, hit me up anytime.
Absolutely. Anyway, this has been episode 373 of Talking Heads. Join us every Wednesday night at 6 p.m. Pacific time for the latest in beer and tech news. Next time, we'll be live from somewhere in the Bay Area. I'm going to be in the Bay Area next Wednesday. There's a couple breweries that I like to frequent down there, so maybe on Wednesday night we'll do a live show. Maybe we'll get Will to show up. That might be fun.
Where do you go? What's your brewery of choice in San Francisco?
Gosh, I need to look up what it was. There's one... I've been to 21st Amendment.
21st Amendment's great.
Hold on, let me see.
Magnolia is really good. They're more of a gastro pub, but their beers, they have a fantastic bitter.
Yeah.
Tornado is I think the famous beer bar in San Francisco.
Yeah.
Where they have 80 or 90 beers draft. It's for sale right now, so you might want to go in case, just in case.
I have broadcast twice from Fault Line Brewing in Santa Clara.
Oh, yeah. Fault Line's great.
Yeah. They have fantastic food and German-inspired beer. What could be better? So
there's a lovely place. It's in Petaluma, so it's kind of a hall.
Okay.
But called Firehouse that does a great Firehouse Farmhouse. I can't remember. It's one or the other.
Okay.
They do farm style beers. Maybe it's Farmhouse. Anyway, it's good. It's too far to go for GTC though.
Yeah. Yeah, so I'll be in San Jose next week. We'll probably end up going to either Fault Line or we'll try to find some right downtown in San Jose, but I don't know how realistic that is. So
cool. Fault Line's fun. Fault Line's a good place.
Yeah, it's a good place. It's an easy to get to place, I think, in the grand scheme of things. I haven't asked them yet, but they've been fantastic the last couple times. I've showed up on their doorstep and hey, can I podcast? And they went, yeah, absolutely. So
beautiful. That's rad.
Yeah. So 50-50 chance we're at Fault Line Brewing next Wednesday night. So
nice.
Stay tuned for that. Anyway, do all the YouTube things. Like the video, subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. I've got links for where to find myself and Will on social medias down in the video description. Will, if you want to plug those again, your podcast and everything else, feel free.
Yeah. Please check out the newsletter. It's at next.content.town. It's called What's Next. The idea is that over the last 15 years, our computers have started working more for the faceless multinational companies that sell them to us than for us. Mm-hmm. And so I'm doing a weekly newsletter about ways we can kind of claw back that usability. So I had people really liked the one a couple of weeks ago about just. It turns out, you know what? You have a lot of notifications when you look at them. You don't need almost all of them. Just get rid of them all. I have texts on for my wife. I've gone from 250 notifications a day to 60, and my life is measurably better as a result of that. Yes. I pick up my phone and I use it for I pick it up when I want to use it and need to use it for something, instead of every time somebody wants to sell me a hamburger or something. So that's really good. The Tech Pod is weekly on Sundays. Single topic deep dive into topics. We kind of peel the onion. So we start with a survey level, and then we get a little more complicated and a little more in. And you can punch out at any point along the way. But my favorite episode of that we've done in the last little bit, the Rob Zachney episode where we talked about reverse engineering the technology rules of Star Wars was really fun and very stupid. But we did an episode last where we talked about the Microsoft IntelliMouse Explorer, which was the first optical mouse, and why moving from a physical device that's mediated by a rolling ball to a silicon camera ended up being one of the most important technological advancements of that decade. And it's a fun story. We did an episode a long time ago where we talked about why the refresh rate of monitors is 60 hertz. and that goes back to the 1800s, it turns out. So anyway, it's a fun podcast.
I still have new inbox and original Microsoft IntelliMouse.
Oh man, that's a banger.
Yes.
Yeah. So the IntelliMouse was the first one. The Explorer was the one everybody likes.
Yeah.
But the point was,
the Explorer had the forward back buttons. I have the one without. I have the first generation one.
Yeah. And it just looked like a normal old school ball mouse.
It was an old school ball mouse. It did have a scroll wheel. But it was an optical mouse, and it had the little red cutout on the back with the Microsoft logo. Kind of emblazoned on the back, and so the optics that shot down would also shoot red out the back of the mouse, so you knew you were using an optical mouse.
Well, but also like the big deal about it though was that it went from being a mechanical device to a silicon device,
right?
And then all of a sudden the rules of silicon getting better applied instead of the rules of mechanical stuff getting better applied, it changed the way a lot of that stuff. Anyway, we have a lot of fun, and those are both at content.town, next.content.town, and techpod.content.town. So
nice.
Thanks for the plugs.
Yes,
appreciate it.
Absolutely. Anyway, thank you all so much for watching. This has been a heck of a lot of fun. And as always, we'll see you next week. Cheers, everyone.
Bye, everybody.
Bye. And we're out.
Cool. This was fun, Jeff. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you.